Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Overwatch Contenders Trials. I am your host for today, Chris Bupasaurus Lassard, and we have an awesome game for you. Today, we've got the British Hurricane versus Tea and Biscuits. I like the thematics of that, by the way. Today, we have two people on the desk that I know and love from Broadcast.gg. We've got Pokemon Panda. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Glad to be here.
And Nauri, how are you doing?
Hey, doing good, man. Really excited for these games.
As I am as well. So the cool thing about this, guys, so I kind of want to preface this. So we've been talking about this game amongst, the analysts for a little bit. And what's really exciting about this is I think on, kind of the visual surface, British Hurricane is a favorite here, right? However, both Nauri and Panda both brought up to me that Tea and Biscuits actually has an opportunity to pull this upset specifically based on how they play this game and their specific style. Nauri, let's talk a little bit about Tea and Biscuits because I know you like a certain GPS player on that team.
Yeah, I think by now everybody knows. We put out a little graphic just before Contenders trials started of who to watch out for. And for me, it's my man Lynx. He does some incredible things on that DPS. His flexibility is incredible. We've seen the Widow, we've seen the McCree, we've seen so many different heroes coming out of his hero pool, and on every single one, he absolutely excels. And that is something that is absolutely key in how Tea and Biscuits play. They really they set it up. They follow him in and they get set up by Webster on his Lucio that pulls them all into battle. They've got Mini Kanga lobbing Discord orbs. They play so well around each other, and their ability to not just run one composition consistently well, but to flex onto a multitude of different compositions is what really gives them that insane edge, and that's what they're going to be what they need to be relying on going into this massive game.
Yeah, so Tea and Biscuits are coming in at 1-1. British Hurricane are 2-0. So if Tea and Biscuits wants to get into Contenders, they've got to beat a Contenders team. So Panda, British Hurricane, they are the favorite. They're 2-0. Season 1 champions, struggled to say the least in Season 2, and now they're here to prove themselves again. We just heard Nauri talk about Tea and Biscuits and Lynx and their DPS and their playmaking supports. What does British Hurricane have to combat that?
Well, British Hurricane on top of their coaching staff. Their resilience throughout this season thus far, Boop, has been nonetheless impressive. It's definitely a good cleanup from their previous run in relegation from Contenders by way of just good duos and good Overwatch well played out throughout their rankings. You can tell their support line, specifically Funny Astro, the way that he's able to rally his troops on that Lucio, play well with his counter support of Bach 1's Ana and Zenyatta, has been very clean to say the least. With these two competitive players, they're able to, again, rally their troops and kind of set up their DPS and create space along with their tanks so that way everybody is well healed, everybody gets anti from Bach 1's Ana, and everything just kind of falls up from there on out.
Well, something that I also want to get into is a word called tempo. So a lot of people have described Tea and Biscuit's style as a little bit of a slower tempo play. Nauri, if they're able to get British Hurricane to play a slower tempo, do you think British Hurricane are going to be able to respond to that appropriately?
Well, I think that if they're forced into a position that they're not used to, obviously, I mean, any team could potentially absolutely buckle under that kind of pressure. If Tea and Biscuits can bring out that flex that we were talking about and bring out those compositions, specifically flexing onto heroes that they know are going to counter what British Hurricanes are doing, but also kind of force them to play their game, then yeah, absolutely, British Hurricanes are probably going to have a bit of a difficult time there. Although knowing that British Hurricanes are as you mentioned, the favorites in the Contenders at the moment, I don't know, they might have some sneaky things in their back pocket.
Well, they have been
Their
known
pocket
for their.
pocket.
Oh, well done, my friend.
Thank
They've
you.
been known to be very versatile in terms of what they can bring. But Panda, do you think sometimes they can fall into a jack of all trades, master of none situation, and that does that make them vulnerable?
I think it absolutely makes them vulnerable. We've seen that word of flexibility and tempo when you throw those two together. Just the ability to play a multitude of heroes on top of a very slow-paced team can kind of leave you vulnerable in that sense. That's exactly what Kib wants. We can see Kib and Nesh; they're very prolific hit scan players within their own right. They can swap over to that Widowmaker, play the Hanzo, shoot you out of the sky, and that leaves Filion, a very well-known Pharah for Tea and Biscuits, out in the sky and left to dry in that kind of sense. So you have to be careful in a way that you're going up against, yes, the season 1 champions, But when you pull out that versatility, that flexibility that Nauri was talking about, it can also catch British Hurricanes out in the open, whether they want it to be or not. If you're not really well versed in your scrims and playing against a Farah heavy composition like we've been seeing in a methodical sense, like Team Biscuits, if Lynx can play that McCree and Philly can play that Farah and they can play that slow surgical game that we have seen from Team Biscuits, then yes, I am going to go back to our previous point. I can see them creating a little bit of an upset, a little bit of a difficulty for our season 1 champions.
All right, so we'll get into some predictions a little later. We will have a special guest for those predictions, but the idea here is what I'm hearing from you is that this is an opportunity for Team Biscuits. One, they can prove themselves by beating the season 1 champions and one of the honestly best teams in trials. And number two, that British Hurricane are going to be the favorites again. And so I kind of want to talk into the mental game on this. So Nauri, you're British Hurricane. You're going to be the favorite every time. Every loss you're going to have is an upset. Do you think that can affect your game and play style, your mental state going into these games?
I mean, absolutely. And that really comes down to the players and how they choose to respond to that pressure. You've got, on the one hand, you've got that feeling of support. Everybody's watching me. Everybody's seeing me. They're rooting for me. They want me to win. Like, I can do this. They've got my back. And that can be a massive boost in confidence. But on the other hand, you can take it in a sense of everyone's watching me. Oh man, what if I choke? What if I fail? What if I die? What if I and that could give you the complete opposite reaction, and then you wind up making mistakes you would never normally make. So that comes down to the mental fortitude of the players and how well they've prepared for this. Because if you know you're well prepared, then you don't really need to stress too much about that pressure, because you know what you're doing. You've trained for this. This is your moment to shine. So yeah, I think it's all going to come down to that head game is one of the biggest things in Overwatch, and it's just going to come down to the players themselves.
Well, Panda, when we were talking earlier, you actually had a really awesome line that you said, right? About this game specifically. Why don't you share it with the audience?
Well, it's kind of true in that sense for Open Division trials specifically. Team Biscuits, they want to beat the relegated team of British Hurricanes. Sure, British Hurricanes, they are coming in here as the favorite as we've been wrapping up here in the desk so far. British Hurricanes, they have nothing to lose in a loss to Team Biscuits here, but Team Biscuits, they have everything to gain from a win here. Beating the Season 1 champions, getting that one step ahead of the teams coming from Open Division, and really stamping their way into Contenders. This is where they want to make a mark for themselves. They're coming in at 1-1. They have this chance. We have weighed out the scales here for Team Biscuits. Now we just need to see how they lay the stakes down and how they grow them. I'm very excited to see that surgical, methodical game that Team Biscuits can play against the aggressive dive-heavy team, especially from the tanks of Fusions and Happy Cool that British Hurricanes have been playing since Season 1 in that championship run.
So I think we're all really excited to see if Tea and Biscuits are going to be able to pull off this upset, and it looks like they have the tools to do it. So now we're going to move on to predictions, my friends. We're going to go ahead and start with Panda, and I want to hear two things. We don't have a lot of time. So in about 30 seconds, tell me your player matchup that you're really excited for and the end game score, my friend.
I'm very excited to see Funny Astro versus Webster, two very prolific Lucio players in the support role within their own selves, but I can see this going to a game 5 to my previous point that Team Biscuits are going to give British Hurricanes a run for their money, but the Season 1 champions got this 3-2 in their victory, British Hurricanes.
All right, Nauri, same thing to you. What you got?
Right. Well, first things first, I'm going to ask my co-analyst here, and no, I don't mean Panda. Today, I mean Cat.
Yes.
Awesome. Hello.
So Cthulhu, you're the expert here, right? Everyone here is so smart, but not as smart as you. Can you let me know the player matchup that you're excited for and the end game score, Mr. or Mrs. Cthulhu?
What's that? Yeah, so he says Kib and Lynx, yeah, those are the guys to watch. And Panda doesn't know what he's talking about. And Team Biscuits are going to take this one home.
Oh, nice. I also like that your cat's
Thanks, Cat.
favorite player is also named after a cat.
Well, there you go. It's synergy.
Yeah, exactly. Good
Circle.
quality synergy. So, my friends, we are very, very close. We're going to start on Control. Panda, I hear British Hurricane are going to take this in 5. Nauri, I hear that Tea and Biscuits. What's going to be the score for that?
I'm also going to say a 3-2. It's going to be a long haul.
All right. So now, though, I have another just quick question before we throw, because you guys both said the game 5. Game 5s are where experience comes into play. So you really think that in a Game 5 situation that British Hurricane might not have a little bit more of an advantage, Nari?
Possibly. We talked a lot about the difference between having a player or a team of seasoned players versus a team of players that aren't so familiar with each other but have insane raw talent. And I think that you got to find that balance. So we
Mm.
know that British Hurricane have that history. They've been playing together for a long time. They clearly have the skill. Tea and Biscuits haven't been playing together as this current six stack for very long, but also massive player skill and potentially on an individual basis, possibly even outskilling some of the British Hurricane players. So I don't know. Hey, I think it's going to be a seriously neck and neck game. Only time will tell.
All right, well, let's see if we can get to that Game 5. But first, we got to get to two other people who are going to lend their talents to this game, and that is going to be Rapture and Ryan at Central, my friends. Why don't you guys take it away?
Thanks, Boop. Thanks, Desk. Welcome, Overwatchers. This is EU Contenders Trial Season 3, 2018. It's day 1 of Week 2, and we have a matchup between British Hurricane and Tea and Biscuits. It's definitely going to be a crazy one. Thank you all for tuning in. I am Rapture, here with Ryan Central. Ryan, you ready to get into this one?
I am. It's the first time I've been able to cast the British Hurricane guys, but also it's going to be nice to see a Contenders team fully fledged versus some of the upper division teams that we managed to cast. Now, they changed the name. We are talking about Operation Spawn Camp here, who came second overall in the playoffs. They've changed the name to Team Biscuits. One of the better teams there, so I'm really interested to see how those veterans, I suppose, who have been playing in Contenders, haven't had the best season and therefore have been relegated, versus those up-and-coming squads that might be coming in. So there's a lot of interesting interactions to do with compositions, meta, just downright player matchups that I think is going to spell a really interesting game today.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming into this game, British Hurricane are currently 2-0 with wins over Aztec Warriors and HSL Esports. That latter set going to 5 maps. And up against them, a 1-1 record for Team Biscuits. They got wins also on Aztec Warriors and Copenhagen. So there's a lot on the line, I think, at least for British Hurricane, right? They've played 2 teams that probably weren't a huge test for them. And if they lose this, they'll lose their, perfect record right here so far. Whereas Tea and Biscuits, I mean, they have a lot to gain for getting a big win on one of the favorites in this group. So there's a lot on the line, a lot at stake for both of these teams. I'm excited how that plays into things. I know, Ryan, you actually know a little bit about what British Hurricane thought about their previous sets.
I mean, it goes beyond that as well. I spoke to Fusions not only about the HSL game at the weekend where they almost lost, they went 2-0 down and then had to reverse sweep all the way back in the final 3 matches to get there, but also Contender Season 2 as a whole. Like, how did they end up there? And I think they themselves would agree and emphasize that that shouldn't happen. They are the only academy team in EU. They should not be in any position where they're almost getting relegated out of Contenders, right? So talking to Fusions, he was very much like, I think he took a lot of the responsibility on himself. But it was less about stuff like, say, Craggy leaving and other DPS coming in. It wasn't that cut dry. It was a meta that they maybe didn't understand. It was a maturity, I suppose, that sort of came in. I think for Season 1, they just had the talent that they could sort of wing a lot of opportunities and do really well in Contenders. But by Season 2, a lot of those teams really improved and performed in a meta where especially communication is pivotal. Playing those GOATS comps, the free compositions, you need to make sure that your communication is on top. So that's one of the main things that Fusion said he struggled with in Season 2, that he feels has got a lot better. And he says that Funny Astro, again, in a very similar shot calling position, has also improved dramatically. But I still sense that there's going to be some issues with their play. They almost lost to HSL, as I said. So if that's something that I think Team Biscuits can exploit, they might be able to run away with this one.
Yeah, and if HSL can bring British Hurricane to 5 maps, Team Biscuits might be able to do the same thing. For the Team Biscuit side, what do you think is like their strongest asset in dealing with British Hurricane?
I love watching Lynx play. I got to cast him in the game. I think it was against HSL, actually, way back in the upper division playoffs. Both teams had qualified, so I think they were just playing for BlizzBucks. So yeah, it's more like Lynx and Fillion, what those DPS can do, how they're going to go against the grain in certain metas. They love to play against GOATs and sort of tear it apart. We'll be good to Ilios first, actually. We'll be starting on Ruins, so probably a lot of Widowmaker. Lynx, as I said, is an amazing Widowmaker. So this is going to be really interesting to watch him go up against Nesh.
Yeah, and any further expectations, knowing that we're going to have Ruins as our first phase of Ilios?
I think just those dive tanks, really. I think Winston, Diva, I don't think you change too much there. Also, Sombra is quite good at being able to get into the back line, you know, work around different avenues of the map, and just be able to find the support to the back line, especially if they're playing Ana. So, not quite sure what they're going to be playing yet. If they're going to be playing, say, Ana, Zenyatta, or even Moira in the triple tank, triple support, that it just sort of enables different ways for someone to play into it.
Well, let's kick things off here. It is our first map, our main event here, and our only match of the day. Thank you all for tuning in. British Hurricane and Team Biscuits running out, and already Nesh picking up Fillion. First blood within the first seconds of the match. So why not a great way to kick things off for British Hurricane? Of course, they're going to mosey on down towards the point with really no resistance here from Team Biscuits.
Team Biscuits playing a composition that we have spoken a lot about. It really needs no description. So it's interesting to see Hurricane go against this. I think Hurricane as a team like to play different comps on different maps. So this suits them quite nicely, and it looks like they're just going to try and push this triple tank, triple spot composition into the wayside a little bit, but they are on the point.
Yep, they get down with a really quick push through that right side room, and now they have about half of the point against British Hurricane, who have given them room to work with. They're going to allow Team Biscuits to get the point and then encompass the rest of the team as they're still kind of squished on the point itself. But now British Hurricane has to fall back. They don't have that front line to take off that swinging Reinhardt, but because the Reinhardt's swinging, they're able to get picks off of the Diva, and of course the Doomfist Kib also finding Fillion. So now the British Hurricane able to snowball onto the point here, battering her own way. The Reinhardt, Valmaster can't keep the team alive here, and Webster also going down. Finally, Valmaster hits the floor, and at 25% or so, British Hurricane will regain control of the point.
I think the composition of British Hurricane needs pointing out. They're playing one support. They are playing Sombra with Bok being on the Sombra instead of another support. They're playing Nesh on the Widowmaker, Kib on the Doomfist. So this is the first time I've seen this kind of composition. Each part of it makes sense. You've got Nesh there for picks because it's good on Ruins, Sombra and Doomfist because it is good against this Goats comp. So makes sense, and it seems to be working so far.
Yeah, when Valmaster's about to have Urge Chatter, that's definitely going to be a great asset to have to try and stop these big ultimates that British Hurricane has. But it only catches, I believe, the Diva and a Widowmaker, and only one kill gets off of that. Now the self-destruct thrown down there, and that's not going to find pay dirt. About 33% now on the board for British Hurricane as they still have control of the point. Meteor Strike used by Kib to stay alive, and then gets right in, finds Webster, and now with the Graviton sets him up for more kills, but he's unable to confirm. And Ron gets back into their Diva mech, and they have the Reinhardt shield to stay alive and now pursue more targets. So Team Biscuits weathering the storm so far. British Hurricane looking for a way in and then deciding not to lose any more bodies, not to give up more ult charge, to reset things.
I wonder if they're going to change up their lineup at all. They seem to be running this strategy, and it had some modicum of success, but Team Biscuits just have that brute force ability to be able to pick off certain targets, and it's just relying on Funny Astro to do the support. So Buck has changed over to Zenyatta. We have seen Nesh pick up the Zarya and Kib on the Brigitte, so they are going to be running the competition themselves. Most importantly, they're running a Zenyatta instead of Moira to be able to just burst through that extra healing that Team Biscuits may have in that comp.
And rally thrown by Fillion. They have the self-destruct and the sound barrier from Rotten and Webster respectively, but Team Biscuits don't have a ton of DPS to throw down off these ultimates. They're going to use a self-destruct from Rotten to try and get into the back line. British Hurricane, though, not going to get caught as it lands on one of those pillars, that big plateau there. And now Valmaster has the Earth Shatter swinging away here. Too clumped up to really let this one go, and not going to waste it. It's really only going to hit the Zenyatta here. Meanwhile, the guy, waits it. Great patience there, looking for it to get two supports. Gets the Zenyatta, and the Bree also gets caught in the crossfire. Good patience there by Valmaster, waiting it out. And by the way, folks, we do know that there is issue with the live feed so far. We're getting it fixed. Thank you all for bearing with us. Ryan, another solid win there for Team Biscuits.
Yeah, it's not only the frame rate that's a little bit choppy. British Hurricane are really sort of struggling to break on through here now that the momentum is in Team Biscuits' favor. The payload, well, the objective is about to hit 100%. Doesn't look like British Hurricane are going to be able to touch it. It's linked to the rest of Team Biscuits tear it apart, but somebody has actually managed to touch it. I think. Ooh, I'm trying to work out who it might be. But at this
literally trying to decipher what is happening. Yeah. Overtime ticking away here. Sound barrier thrown down. And it looks like Team Biscuits does have the advantage. Of course, it's going to be hard to eat through the sound barrier of Webster. No kills for British Hurricane. And Team Biscuits will take the first round here, believe it or not, through the screen. 100-43. Team Biscuits takes the first round of Ilios.
Well, it's a good job that a picture paints 1,000 words, because
Exactly.
we only had like a couple of instances. But this isn't unnormal, I'd say, for British Hurricane. We haven't really seen them play. We didn't get to see the HSL game at all last weekend. So we don't know how close those games ultimately were. I think a lot of British Hurricanes' issues, especially in Contender Season 2, was that psychological side of we should not be losing against these teams. They started off the season losing a lot of games against teams that really they would have known they should have beaten. And once they got to grips with the meta and how to play it, that's when they started running into some of the bigger teams that were, going for playoffs, and teams like Eagle Gaming that ended up winning that season of Contenders. So I think it's something that they need to get over. I wouldn't say that they're necessarily panicking right now, but I think they do need to bring a little bit more to the table with different compositions. The Pharah is, of course, going to come out from Philly and played a lot of it in Open Division. Our Pharmacy combo is pretty strong right now with new Pharah too.
And what do you think about British Hurricane running Nesh on the 76 on Well of Ilios?
I think, well, we saw British Hurricane running McCree this time last week against Oshtek, I believe it was. And being able to control that area because of the space and the effective range of those hit scan heroes is really good. I guess Nesh just went, actually, right now, Soldier 76 with the new changes is a little bit better than McCree. But in that time, Team Biscuits have got the first pick, but both are still fighting for the point. I've actually seen a couple of picks go in British Hurricane's way too.
Oh, and a lot of pressure put on Fusions. They're able to steal the kill away on Lynx before they hit the grave. And Nesh finding one on the DMEC Rotten. So British Hurricane taking control of the point first here against Team Biscuits and staggering about 10% now on the board.
And 79% on Nesh's ult charge too. So having that tactical visor is good to be able to sort of maybe bring Team Biscuits out into the open a little bit. You have this very narrow choke that both teams are fighting in currently where it's not going to be great. I'm really interested to see what Kib does. He has that stun, he has that ability to CC a target out. But Lynx is going to go on the flank actually, very close to a high noon. But let's see if British Hurricane can somewhat mitigate that. They have a few options to do it.
Yeah, and certainly going to need that defense matrix ready for Fillion's barrage, which just got lit. Lynx has a kill. Lynx, Nesh, though, putting that visor on, finds Fillion, has to fall back. It's a Primal Raging Winston in their face. High noon, though, but it's not at a great angle. Not going to be able to find much off of this one. There's no sightline to take, and Fillion will get res back up by Webster, using the Valkyrie to do so. Another self-destruct inside again. Oh, not a well-placed ultimate. It's not going to find Pater. Everyone has already taken cover outside of that room. Now, Lynx still putting a lot of pressure here on this corner, and no one's really able to get over there. There's a lot of tanks and support in his way. Fusion's now just going to decide to hold here with the D.Va, but Team Biscuits aren't going to be intimidated. They're going to continue to push in this right side room, now joined by Valmaster on the Winston. But Team Biscuits not getting greedy. They know they can wait until Fillion gets a pick before they go ham. But though Lynx D-Max half a cool, but it's not enough. Nesh gets the immediate kill on him. And now Fillion nowhere near another barrage. Team Biscuits super low on ult charge. They can't weather the storm this time. And now 75% on the board for British Hurricane.
Team Biscuits falling into similar bad habits that we saw Oshtek last week in that game against British Hurricane. The reason I wanted to highlight that is fighting just off the point, trading damage, poking at one another, yet not actually getting on the point to contest it. So it's looking like British Hurricane have full control of this point. They don't have any ultimates available, but will have Transcendence ready for any aggressive push that Team Biscuits have, who also don't really have any aggressive ultimates. So now we're getting into crunch time. Team Biscuits have to touch.
Yep, there's the rally from Kib. Yeah, Bach has his Transcendence. Nesh is about to give Visor. So British Hurricane's about to pop in a bunch of ultimates here. They can't wait too long, and finally they get them just in time. Funny Astro, though, with a right click on Rotten, and gets the two-piece. Both tanks going down to Lucio. Team Biscuits won't be able to fortify their front line without those tanks. And British Hurricane, as a result, take a convincing 100-0 victory on round 2 of Ilios.
As I said to begin with, British Hurricane are a team that have different comps for different parts of maps. That's one thing that Fusion said to me is, they are very dedicated to certain strategies in certain compositions, even just certain areas of objectives. And now we're starting to see that maybe it was just a bit of a blip that they tried stuff on Ilios Ruins. It didn't quite work because that looked so much more comprehensive than the first matchup that we saw. Now it's all to sort of play for. I think it does lay more in British Hurricane's favor because I'd say that this Lighthouse stage is a lot more similar to the Well than the Ruins. But let's see what Team Biscuits try and change up. Looks like they're going to be running a fairly straightforward composition. Triple tank, not quite goats because they have links on the McCree. And that's probably because of Kib or Nesh going to be on those heroes that we all know and love, Sombra and Doomfist.
Yeah, that's something I'm worried about for Team Biscuits. The Sombra and Doomfist combination, how deadly it can be. Is links on the McCree going to be enough to silence both of those, heroes here, essentially? And half a cool up on the high ground, trying to put some pressure on with the D.Va. Going to rejoin its team, get rid of the other D.Va, just cover for support like a good D.Va should. Goes in, though, finding Fusions, and that'll go down. Team Biscuits, though, with the slight player advantage here, so they're going to rotate towards the point, let British Hurricane come to them, and it works out as now they're doing a lot of damage from inside of this room, taking cover, and they get the first point.
And it's going to be really tricky to move them just with the heroes that they have and what British Hurricane are playing. So it is going to be really tricky to just find an avenue to find a pick, because everybody's just hiding behind Valmaster's shield right now, sitting really far back, using cover, making sure that they don't get poked down. But Nesh actually gets the pick on Civilian, but both teams are trading right now.
Oh, and Lynx letting loose in the high noon only gets the attention of Hapacool, and then the kill stolen there by Funny Astro. Self-destruct on the point now, trying to get rid of Team Biscuits off the point, but only going down, getting rid of British Hurricane. But it doesn't work out. Rotten can't stay alive, doesn't get kills. British Hurricane retake the point here at 31% for Team Biscuits.
And Doomfist is a really good hero. You start to see why, and you start to see why it's used in the competitions the Team Biscuits run and all sorts of competitions that those top tier teams like to play. Team Biscuits are a team that like to break apart the composition that they're playing right now, but British Hurricane don't really rely on it. You're seeing it now. They're not really running Reinhardt, Zarya, Goats comp at all. They're quite flexible. So I think Team Biscuits right now really struggling to find an answer to British Hurricane's somewhat unorthodox strategies that they've been running, because it seems to be working really well in Hurricane's favor.
Yeah, and that high mobility making it hard for Team Biscuits to land shots, get in position for Valmaster to swing away at a target, so they're building alt charge slower as well. EMP from Nesh lands right behind the backline of Team Biscuits. Valmaster easily goes down. High noon from Lynx, though, dropping down from above and able to catch Funny Astro as they're catapulting themselves off the map. Team Biscuits, though, with a little bit of an ability to get on the point here with the Transcendence. Oh, a nice biotic grenade, though, from Bach. That's be hard for this Bree to stay alive against this Nano Boost Diva, but with the help of the rest of the team, able to clock him back. But now Fusion's getting on the point. Still, Team Biscuits with a slight player advantage on the point until they lose that Lucio. Gets right back on. Stunned is Hapacool. They're going to get D-Mech, but another biotic grenade from Bach. Earth Shatter off the point, and now trying to rejoin his Valmaster. Kib, though, gets one on Webster, but Kib gets immediately punished by that Reinhardt. Now 35%. Team Biscuits find the key and unlock the door, and they get recontrol the point.
British Hurricane and Team Biscuits both dedicated a lot of ultimates to that engagement. I think it kind of worked out in British Hurricane's favor, even though that they lost a point, because they managed to stalk for quite a while and also get a good amount of ult charge for the next engagement. You have Fusions as Primal Rage ready, Bok almost as Nano Boost, and they're well on their way to getting another EMP. Team Biscuits do have a few ultimates of their own, going to have a high noon by the time of this next push, potentially. Rotten does have that self-destruct, but straight away, Hapacool and Kim managed to team up and take down Valmaster.
Lynx just loves dropping in with this high noon from above, and got one last time. Unfortunately, nobody peeking out for that one. EMP can't be denied. Nesh throws it down. Fusion gets one on Minikun, and now Minikun now the kill feed just going blue. It speaks for itself. British Hurricane with another convincing victory here. 80% now on the board for the Brits.
It seems that when you use EMP, especially, Nano Boost did get used in that engagement too. It's just, you clean house completely, and it looked like Team Biscuits just had no option other than to just wipe and change up their composition. 89% now on the objective. Team Biscuits changed up. Lynx is now on Tracer to touch and contest the point. They also use Rally, so they need to touch the point now. British Hurricane looking in a nice position to finish this one up.
Oh, and Hapacool, sneaking that self-destructed and Fillion can't get out of dodge. Gets hit by that explosion. Fusion putting a lot of pressure on it, trying to build towards that Primal Rage so they can sustain longer in this fight. Nesh, though, picking up the slack, finds Valmaster, finds Webster, looking for more, but they have a Transcendence in their face. Gets the D-Max nonetheless, 2.5 from Nesh, and they're going to wait out this Transcendence here from Minikun. Goes trying to get out. Fusion's, though, going to siphon some more ult charge off that Omnic. Hapacool with one. Kib gets the D-Max Diva. And that's just complete victory here for British Hurricane. Team Biscuits have no more tools to burn, no more fuel to work with. And there's the victory. Ilios going to British Hurricane with a 2-1 win.
They look like a contenders team there for sure. British Hurricane looked a lot stronger on the final two maps. One thing that I failed to highlight with HSL overall, and the game against HSL, was the fact that because of Team UK scrims and stuff, a good portion of the players on British Hurricane just struggled because they hadn't warmed up. They hadn't had the opportunity to play. And so that first game, they really suffered for it. When they went into hybrid, which is the next game mode, that was all to do with strategy. So they looked warmed up, is what I'm saying. They looked so much clinical and they looked a lot stronger. And I can't wait to see more of them, hopefully with more frames in our gameplay this time, though.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. We definitely have some more maps coming on the way, but we're going to throw to a quick break to get things sorted. Thank you all for sticking with us, and we'll see you on the other side of this break.
Tell me where you wanna go. We could fly to the stars, yeah. Tell me if you wanna stay. We could fly night and day, yeah. Tell me where you wanna go. We could fly to the stars, yeah. Tell me if you wanna stay. We could fly, yeah. To the stars, yeah. To the stars, yeah.
Welcome back, Overwatchers. Sorry for the delay, but hopefully the live feed has been fixed up real quick. So either way, we're back into it. Going to map 2 between British Hurricane here and TN Biscuits. And I'm Rapture here with Ryan Central. On the other side of a long break, we saw a 2-1 victory for British Hurricane on Ilios. And now we're going to move into hybrid for our next game type.
I wonder what we're going to see, to be honest. Actually, no, I think it might be a pure escort, because we've had stuff like Rialto played on previous games, because we have seen a lot of Rialto from teams. Because I was just wondering what, like, basically it's Team Biscuits pick. What are they going to choose? Are they going to force it onto a map that British Hurricane may want to play Goats comp on for them to try and take it apart? Because I feel like that's kind of like the trap that Team Biscuits are wanting to lay out for British Hurricane. But Hurricane boys aren't just buying it. They're not biting it, sorry.
And they took like one round of Ilios to warm up a little bit, and they win 2 in a row. So definitely have momentum. Hopefully a good amount of momentum coming into our next map, which will be Eichenwald for map 2. And so now it's Team Biscuits to try and keep pace with British Hurricane, right? This is a 2-1 victory in Ilios. Could have gone either way, but British Hurricane slowly but surely got a larger and larger advantage as that control map went through. And now we have Eichenwald. We have a hybrid situation where we could see the gap, widen even further between these two teams. Any expectations from what we saw in Ilios now going to Eichenwald?
I think Philly will be played a bit more Farah. We saw glimmers of it, especially on the well part of the map for Team Biscuits, but I think it opens up a little bit more, especially on the first point of Eichenwald if they're attacking it. So I expect to see more of that, honestly. Both teams could run all sorts of assortments of compositions. These aren't teams that are dictated by the meta by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm really excited to see what British Hurricane do here.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to what both of these teams bring out. It will be Team Biscuits on the offense, first here in the red, and British Hurricane taking a task here to be on defense in the blue. So already seeing a little bit of what British Hurricane might run. Kib already looking at that Farah. No surprise, a Somber here for Nesh. So, and Nesh has been playing multiple different hats in this set so far. I like that we're seeing Farah, because last week we didn't see too much Farah, or really Farah at all on Eichenwald, and Kib going right for it this time on defense.
I think he kind of has to. He knows that players like Fillion and Lynx could take him down if he's not careful. Lynx is locked in the Widowmaker, another strong pick. Don't really see it a lot on the first point of Eichenwald attacking it, but I mean, it's Lynx. He will find a way to make good use out of it. Really interesting lineup for British Hurricane. It's a fairly common one, but it really does, separate the men from the boys in a lot of cases. So interested to see how they do defending first point, and what Team Biscuits want to do on this attack.
And thank the Overwatch gods. It looks like we have frames, folks. So this should definitely be a much more legible map going into this one. Team Biscuits out on the offense first, but hopefully I didn't speak too soon. Link's going to be on this McCree, leading the front line just a little bit, and bolstered by Webster on the Mercy. So they're going for a right side push here, and British Hurricane are, once again, like we saw on Ilios, willing to give the offense room to work with and kind of let them kind of make their own mistakes. And of course, Kib, bolstered by Funny Astro on the Mercy, going to be doing a lot of long-range damage here. And Team Biscuits now going to put a little pressure on the right side on half a cool, trying to put down and get some ult charge on them. But the Winston now are going right in. Fusions going to get proactive and give Kib targets to cut down. Fillion goes down first. Now looking for Lynx, who has to get caught up by the Mercy and just gets the cover just in time. No, I take that back. Kib able to sneak a rocket right in through that room, and Lynx can't get away in time, and then gets another one for the trouble. Mini Cougar also going down. British Hurricane eating away over a minute now from Team Biscuits' offensive push.
I think you highlighted a really interesting point that I wanted to sort of talk about is just waiting for Team Biscuits to come in a little bit. Ultimately, it means that Team Biscuits have no way to disengage. So it kind of British Hurricane go, come on in, guys. It's fine. No, it's fine. It's coming. And then they sort of almost close the door behind them and really put them in a tricky position. Kib has his ultimate. Nano Boost is used actually onto Fusions. And again, getting very aggressive here.
Yeah, and British Hurricane have a bunch of ultimates they're going to have or have already. There's a self-destruct coming out from Rotten, though. To try and get things going, they find Bog. That's a great opportunity there to go in. There's no biotic grenades you have to worry about, so you can play a little more aggressive. Fusion's going all the way in the back, about to have Primal Rage as well, but really just trying not to die before they use it. Rotten, though, gets to them just in time. A self-destruct, though, used just to really get back into the fray, not looking for kills. Now Lynx with a high noon and cuts down the Angel out from the sky, send them to hell. And now 2 minutes on the clock, and Team Biscuits will get more than a half of point A, 2/3 now, and there's the last third. They will take point A with about 4 minutes and 30 seconds, just under that on the clock. And British Hurricane going to make some adjustments. Now Kib going from the Pharah to the Hanzo.
Makes sense, being able to climb up to the high picture of high ground or just be able to move up and down like his team, the Winston Diva, can do that. That fight all pretty much started from Buck down to that self-destruct. Funny Astro had a lot of weight on his shoulders to heal and support the rest of his team. But once Lynx had that high noon, it was quite easy to take the Mercy out of the sky. But now British Hurricane have been quite aggressive here. They never got the opportunity to use the EMP, so they're almost, again, waiting for Team Biscuits to come in a little bit more. Webster goes down early, and it seems that Nesh is going to be able to maybe get the kill onto Team Biscuits as they're trying to get out. But ultimately, it's not enough. British Hurricane been very aggressive here, too.
Yeah, that was a good job there. Webster cut down by a nice shot from Kib, and then Nesh just cleaning things up. So you can see how British Hurricane, their effectiveness at focusing down targets, getting quick kills, paying off right there, getting rid of the Mercy, slowing things down against Team Biscuits, and British Hurricane now just building towards this opportunity for EMP to get thrown down. There it is. Kib gets one onto Fillion. British Hurricane not getting too much off of that, and they're going to use at least some time to buy, at least going to waste some time against this high noon. Lynx does get fusions on the tail end of it. Nesh will find the DMEC Rotten, but really the British Hurricane kind of slowing and stymieing Team Biscuits, not letting them get a clean fight here, forcing them to use resources even if they do come out on top. A self-destruct up on top. The British Hurricane really just, making it a slow victory here for Team Biscuits.
That's all they want to do on the defense. They know that some fights they will lose inevitably, but they want to stall as much time as possible. Nesh actually changing off the Sombra onto Widowmaker, running double sniper, which you don't see an awful lot of in today's meta at least. So interested to see what strategies they run. You can see Nex firing from a flank, maybe trying to force Team Biscuits to not just push onto the objective, but also push onto the left and right hand sides where British Hurricane are currently hiding. They do have ultimates both sides. This is going to be one scrappy fight. Make sure that this payload doesn't go any further.
Oh, so Lynx using the high noon only gets the attracts the attention there of Valmaster, and then gets cut down there. McCree, gets the attention of Fusions, and Fusions does get cut down by Fillion. Team Biscuits now with a slight advantage on the point, and Kib had used a Dragon Strike that really didn't get anything. It might have even gotten eaten, but it didn't find pay dirt nonetheless. Nash also super low. So British Hurricane now trying to just slowly build up some ult charge here against Team Biscuits while not letting go of the payload, and that's working for them. They DMEC Rotten, get that stagger there, and regain control of the payload at 2 minutes for Team Biscuits.
Nesh on the Brigitte after a quick change. Kib, as you pointed out, used Dragon Strike in that last fight, is almost 70% on having it for this one. Nice, interesting flank using the main bridge wave Icon Bolt to get around Team Biscuits and to sort of attack them from the sides and behind. Now we're seeing Hafiko being very aggressive on the Diva, does get DMEX, so this provides an opportunity for Team Biscuits to maybe get a couple of picks.
Yeah, but once they go on that high ground, Valmaster falls back, so they're giving up that high ground they got by demecking the Diva. So they're just going to forego that, let British Hurricane hold it. British Hurricane are staying far away from the payload. It's getting back-capped here by the Diva, so finally going over to contest off-screen. A self-destruct now up against the castle, not going to find Pater. Fillion, though, gets caught by the biotic grenade, has to get out of dodge. A Dragon Strike almost scraping them, but a nice, great Dragon Strike there. Until British Hurricane realizing, well, the payload's still kind of pushing along regardless of that Dragon Strike we just threw down. So Team Biscuits able to steal away the second checkpoint and work through the ultimates that British Hurricane had thrown at them. But still, despite that, on the other side of that fight, British Hurricane still with a few resources to use.
Yeah, and they do have a good opportunity to change up their lineup. Fusions has now switched over to the Reinhardt, so perfectly sort of suited. Nesh changing again to Zarya. So this composition better suits Hurricane on this part of the map. As I said, they like to sort of keep aware of where they're playing and what strategies work. Fusions is getting sort of separated, but then Nanoboost goes onto him with a big self-destruct coming in from Happy Cool. So now we're seeing Team Biscuits start to fall apart a little bit.
And Furry Fusion's trying to stay alive, but charges almost right into that Dragon Strike, right into the maw of the Dragon. Fusion's now bouncing away back, has the Discord Orb onto them, but attention's elsewhere, trying to clean up Hurricane there. They're trying to clean up Valmaster, who dived all the way back out. Super low on HP, and Half a Cool is able to clean up the kill. Nesh now with a huge amount of charge here, helping send Team Biscuits back outside of the castle. So a lot more time eaten away for Team Biscuits, even though they're going to get that pick on Funny Astro. Probably not going to be too big of a deal. And Team Biscuits has to push all the way back through the choke point again to get control of the payload.
They almost have a few ultimates themselves. British Hurricane, they do have a rally coming up. Fusions is just trying to sort of keep alive. That's a Reinhardt meta in this case. Hasn't had an opportunity to build up an Earth Shatter just yet. Valmaster's changing so that you've got Reinhardt versus Reinhardt. Big self-destruct coming in, but doesn't get anybody. And that's a big grab to separate Valmaster from the rest of Team Biscuits.
Dragon Strike almost catches the backline. British Hurricane, but Half a Cool and Bot get out just in time. Nash now pushing up, forcing Team Biscuits out of the castle yet again. But they're getting caught on the right side. They have to go towards that bridge. It's a risky move, but it pays off. Kib, though, able to right-click Lynx before they're able to step over into that far room and not make it over the bridge. So Team Biscuits now reduced to under a minute here, making changes on the fly. Fillion back over to the Bree. Mini Cougar is about to have Transcendence, and Webster has a Sound Bear, but that's it. They only have support ultimates right now.
And that's all they really need, both of which get used. There's a lot of stuns coming in. Big Earth Shot from Fusions too.
Oh!
And I think I hear the sound of grab.
Oh my god, I thought Fusions just got knocked into the pit, but they land on the platform just in time. Unfortunately, that wastes the majority of the nano boost they had on them. And now Team Biscuits chasing down Fusions, but it's a Sound Barrier, and then an Earth Shatter cracked down by Fusions. They knocked down by like bowling pins. Now Mini Kunga gets two. Another one there for Lynx on the board. It's a huge advantage for Team Biscuits, and they're going to be able to stagger Nesh on the Zarya, who decides just to reset on down into the pit. 5 seconds left on the clock. Team Biscuits getting aggressive. The payload's now in the last corner, and British Hurricane are going to use Half a Cool to go onto the Doomfist, try to just dislodge Team Biscuits off of the payload itself. Super low is Fusions, and they get discorded and melted down by Fillion. Rotten has the self-destruct to keep British Hurricane at bay. Another one, 6v4 advantage here for Team Biscuits. They're totally control the payload, but they're caught in place with the Graviton. Half a Cool finds Lynx. Still an advantage of self-destruct from Rotten, and British Hurricane have nowhere to run. They can't get back in time. The reinforcements aren't there, and Team Biscuits are able to finally complete the map. 3 points on the board, and they've given British Hurricane a run for their money.
Yep, in overtime, there was a lot of positions where it looked like they were struggling, and it looked like there were a lot of positions where they gave themselves a good amount of time. I think British Hurricane are going to be fairly disappointed with how aggressive they were on this defense, not to be able to make sure that that payload didn't go any further. So, as I said, they're a team that do look composed and have these really solid strategies that seem to work. But it seems to be a couple of scenarios and instances where they get backcapped or they do something where they're over aggressive and they get picked. There's still a lot to learn from these groups of players. And Team Biscuits just might open themselves up a good opportunity here, especially if Hurricane can now not finish the map.
Yeah, I mean, that would be huge for Team Biscuits, right? Because not only they're winning the map, they're denying British Hurricane from even really finishing it, going extra rounds. So like they're kind of just cutting off British Hurricane at the knees. And going into the next map, I think there'll be a great amount of momentum for Team Biscuits to work with. And these have been, like we've said, we saw in Ilios, that was close. We saw here, it can be a close map. Team Biscuits clearly able to finish the map. But remember, they didn't finish with any time. So British Hurricane, finishes the map with a ton of time. Team Biscuits really have set up British Hurricane to have a really solid win condition early in the next attempt. So even though the map has been completed, there's still a lot of work for Team Biscuits to do to get this victory.
Right, and I think it's one of those sessions where it enables Team Biscuits an opportunity to get back into this. I think if the score went to 1-1 overall, I think that still benefits British Hurricane. As we sort of pointed out, they were 2-0 down by halftime in that HSL game. So they get better as the map goes on, I suppose. So it's trying to work out, if British Hurricane lose this map, will it matter? I think it's like the match as a whole. Does it matter too much to them if they end up losing this game against Team Biscuits, or whether they're quite comfortable? But right now, I'd say they're looking in a pretty good spot and running a composition again on this attack to see if they can break down Team Biscuits, who are kind of forced off Goat's comp a little bit.
Yeah, they're still running Lynx on the McCree, right? They're making that modification. They want to have that burst damage, a little bit of, some kind of reprieve against the dive with like a flashbang, something, to answer with a little more DPS rather than relying on health pool and support. So But that McCree's really not going to stop anyone from just kind of rushing in the choke point. British Hurricane just walks right in, swinging away here. And Valmaster goes down super low. A great Discord order placed by Bak1 to melt them, and Kib gets the kill. And now Fusion's just going to mosey on down towards the point, and the rest of the British Hurricane's going to join them. Team Biscuits really have very few players left. They had 3, and now Fusion goes down, Fillion goes down, Webster 2, and Rotten will join them. So a very, very rapid win here for British Hurricane at over the 3-minute mark.
It was clinical, really. They managed to get those picks fairly early on, and from there, it's quite easy and concise for them to be able to just take them apart. I guess the British Hurricane ran this they started off running the competition that they're running now, quickly pedaled back to change to triple tank, triple support, broke Team Biscuits apart, and now they're playing on this composition. Maybe they realized that Team Biscuits weren't going to play the composition themselves, so they went, oh, they're not playing it, let's do it, because they know that Team Biscuits, if they're prepared for that composition, they could take it apart. But if you're not playing that composition, well, it's they're setting up on defense. Now Nesh able to get a pick onto Nesh just opens up this map a little bit more for British Hurricane.
All right, British Hurricane, Kib now on the Genji. Bucket has the Zenyatta Transcendence ready to go. The Team Biscuits starts to want to play a little aggressive here, and they've had the Mercy res from the Widowmaker, and now we have half a cool demecking Rotten, and that'll be a cleanup kill there for Funny Astro, and Rotten unable to get away from that one. British Hurricane now have a bunch of ultimates ready to go. Bucket, Funny Astro, and half a cool all on the board here for their ultimates. Nesh is about to get halfway to theirs. Kib low, but about to respawn with a Dragon Blade ult charge pretty much there. And Team Biscuits, though, nevertheless going to silence British Hurricane for the time being.
And it's whether they're able to control this space a little bit better than British Hurricane, whether they can control engagements in a lot less aggressive nature. Team Biscuits do have a coalescence ready to pile through the rest of Team Biscuits and British Hurricane with how it works. Bucket does have a Transcendence. Funny Astro has the sound barrier. They have a few ultimates themselves, but now they're going to sort of sneak into the castle a little bit. Just try and work their way around Team Biscuits that are now trying to play a little bit of catch up. Barmaster, though, can't really touch, and he's going to get separated completely there.
Yeah, and half a cool shutting down Valmaster before the fight really even gets started. So, and Valmaster had Primal Rage too. So this fight could have gotten much longer if he had that still up, but Valmaster should be able to rejoin the fight before it really gets going. Sound barrier and Coalesce both pop. There's the Dragon Blade going right in, finds Webster first, going for the Coalesce and more, gets them as well, but Bucket steals the kill. It's a 5v3 situation here for British Hurricane, and they should be able to get the Widowmaker as well. Bucket steals the kill. Team Biscuits falling one by one like dominoes. And now British Hurricane going around this last corner of the second phase of Eichenwald, looking to complete around that 3-minute mark.
And still have a good amount of ultimates ready for this engagement. Bucket didn't use the Transcendence. Nesh's EMP, which, as I pointed out before, can be just a complete team wipe and clear out without any contention. That's a big Diva Bomb that's going to come through, but the Transcendence actually stops Bucket going down.
It goes right through the window, but no one's standing outside. Half a cool, though, stealing in a self-destruct kill, and then an EMP comes out, and that'll be Nesh just helping the rest of British Hurricane snowball kills on Team Biscuits. They don't have cooldowns to use to get out of this one, but Team Biscuits still have their tanks on the payload so they can bully British Hurricane away. But Fusion's doing the same to Lynx, use that Primal Rage to do so. Now trying to get rid of the front line of Team Biscuits and finds Webster for their troubles collateral damage while the tanks are taking the rest of the damage here. Team Biscuits can't sustain. Now at about 4 minutes and change on the clock, British Hurricane going to the third and final phase of Eichenwald.
One thing that we highlighted at the start of all this is that Fusions feels that he's made a big improvement in his play. He's matured a lot. And you got to say as well, with some of the plays that he's had with Winston's Primal Rage, you can start to see how much more effective he is on the main tank. Now he's going to switch over to Reinhardt, which can be a very different ballpark. And now they have just less than 4 minutes on the clock to finish off this map. Team Biscuits could stall it though. It's happened before. But right now it's looking really good for British Hurricane, who are just storming on through.
Well, yeah, they find Valmaster. The Diva also goes down. Team Biscuits, they don't have any more coverage. They don't have the tanks to give them room to work with. They need a real estate agent out here, and British Hurricane is going to continue to throw down that property value lower and lower for Team Biscuits. And now 3 minutes and 20 seconds on the clock for British Hurricane on their push, that is. And Hafakul going to use that self-destruct, trying to sneak it into the back line, but then also great rush in there. The charge from Fusions denies Valmaster a clean shield. Valmaster goes down, Webster as well. British Hurricane transitioning off of that one. Team Biscuits forced to use the Transcendence or Minikunga, and that should be enough to maybe get 1 or 2 reinforcements in. British Hurricane, though, going to try and stop that with an Earth Shatter, and it puts Valmaster right on their back. They can't contest, and British Hurricane not only completing the map, but do so with a bunch of time.
All they have to do is get a third now on this first point, and they have a lot of avenues and opportunities to take. If they do what they did on their attack before, they could just go out spawn doors with whatever comp they like, look at what Team Biscuits are running, go back to spawn, change up their composition. It's not that Team Biscuits can do the same. They get to point, they get ready to defend, and then British Hurricane go, well, they can't go back to spawn and change their lineup, so we'll just look at what they're playing, counter them, go back to spawn, win. You know what I mean? Maybe not in that order. You don't go back to spawn to win. But in a lot of cases, it's just working out what Team Biscuits are running. British Hurricane have the hero pool, the coordination, and they know how to break down a lot of what Team Biscuits want to do on the first point defense Viking Vault. So looking in a prime position to be able to go 2-0 up before halftime here.
Yeah, why not be in that position? But Team Biscuits can still do this, right? This is still, doable. This is less than the time you start with in the map itself on your first attempt. So Team Biscuits could hold off British Hurricane, but British Hurricane got point A on that attempt in less than a minute. So they have the time to capture point A almost 3 times over, considering how they did in the last attempt here. So Team Biscuits a lot of work to get done. If they do hold off British Hurricane, it'll be 1-1 going into halftime, but that's a lot to be done. A lot easier said than done. And British Hurricane breaking out with Nesh still on the Sombra, Bucket on the Ana. So we got to worry about those biotic grenades. Rotten has to be in position to matrix those up. And Kip's still in the Genji now.
Right now, they're just going to be looking and working out what Team Biscuits are running. They have a few options. Lynx is going to be on the Widowmaker, again, trying to find sightlines of Philly, just putting in a ton of damage into the tanks. You can see Fusion's there. Just taking a bit of a boot from the new rockets. Doesn't knock you back as much as they used to. We are on the new Farah patch, as that is currently on live. So it's just a case now of maybe British Hurricane trying out some different strategies. They're going to be running the Sombra. As I said, clean EMP might be enough to win this fight and get this point. British Hurricane are taking their time with this.
Yeah, and letting Team Biscuits come to them like we saw earlier in Eichenwald. This is earlier on this map. That's exactly what British Hurricane is doing, letting Team Biscuits come to them and then punishing as they overextend. But it's a 5-5 situation here, 1-for-1 trade and no kills. The Biotic Grenade, a well-placed one at that from Bucket, will help put down that Diva, but Fillion is able to sneak in a barrage kill. Cool turns around immediately and shuts them down, but not before kill goes down. British Hurricane with the advantage, and now they're isolating Webster, who's trying to get into cover, but Fusions gets them just in time. Diva will also go down, Rotten getting put down to the floor, and British Hurricane with another definitive win here on Team Biscuits. They complete the map with time. Team Biscuits did not, and all they had to do is get point A, and they do so, making their lead 2-0.
Did you see how they waited for Fillion's barrage? They sort of hid under cover, and then as soon as the Pharaoh went down because Hafikul flew into them, people came out, like, obviously the Sombra unstealthed, but also people came out from behind cover, and that's where they started pouncing on people. That patient, dedicated play to go, they have barrage, just take it, just wait, okay, use it, and then we're going to go through and actually pounce on them when they dedicate ultimates and still lose out in fights. So really well-disciplined play from British Hurricane. Since that first round on Ruins on Ilios, they have looked a much more solid team. That's an area that might need a bit of work, but I can vote for them. Really clean, really concise.
Absolutely. And now that has gotten them a 2-0 victory. And on the other side of halftime, they'll have an attempt to win the series outright. But there's a lot to talk about. We're going to throw it over back to the desk to see what they have to say. Take it away.
Hello and welcome back to the Overwatch Contenders Trials Desk. I am Bupasaurus here with Nauri and Panda. We do have a first half to analyze, so let's go ahead and just talk about some general things beforehand, because I want to get this back to Nauri. So before this game, we talked about, oh, Team Biscuits can play that slow tempo style and can be flexible, but we actually haven't seen like any of that flexibility so far. Do you think that it's what is contributing to them being down 2 games right now?
Absolutely. In fact, I must say that I'm a little disappointed. I was expecting to see a lot more flexibility coming through here. And all we've seen so far is a lot of goats and then a little bit of like Farah McCree or swapping the Farah onto a Brigida. So you got that trip support, 2 tanks and a McCree. And it's just been kind of the same formula over and over again. They haven't been running anything particularly exciting. And I think it's really working against them. But a point that I was making earlier is I think it could be a head game thing. You get to a point, you're up against the favorites, the team that everyone is expecting to just blow everybody out of the water, and you want to be at your best. You want to play at your peak. So my McCree is my best hero, I'm gonna play McCree, or my Diva is my best hero, so I gotta play Diva. And you kind of throw your strats out the window because you think if you're on your hero that performs the best, then your team will ultimately perform better. And that's not necessarily true. So I think a big wall that Team Biscuits are running into at the moment is the fact that they're not showing us the flexibility that we know that they're capable of.
And so, Panda, I'm going to ask you this then. So, we talked about how if Tea and Biscuits got British Hurricane to play their game, they'd be successful. British Hurricane obviously successful at make the opposite of that. Tea and Biscuits playing British Hurricane's game, British Hurricane honestly having an easy time. There were moments where Tea and Biscuits were able to break through, particularly Lynx on McCree on the second point on Eichenwald comes to mind when he popped off a little bit. But in the end, the individual matchups between the roles, for example, Nesh and Lynx, Happy Cool and Roten, and Funny Astro and Webster, all seem to be going the way of the Hurricane.
I can definitely agree to that. And I can attest to the previous point made by my co-analyst as well, that I can see Tea and Biscuits playing a little bit timid. They're very much so intimidated by the season one champions of the British Hurricanes, and that's to that point as well. Those not necessarily 1v1 matchups, but who's making the bigger impact on that role specifically. You had mentioned Happy Cool versus Roten. I think that Roten's definitely doing a good job. We had mentioned earlier in the pre-show just how good these divas, or these Anas rather, on each other's teams, the Miniconga versus Bucket for the British Hurricanes, are very impactful. We haven't really seen too many grenades. Happy Cool's been there in the back line keeping Bucket alive, so we've been seeing a lot of heals coming through on fusions, but it's when the DPS, like you had mentioned, Boop, when British Hurricanes are allowed to play their game and having an easy time doing so, just letting Kib and Nash just flex to a multitude of heroes. We saw the Soldier 76 Brigitte composition on Well from Elios. We got to see a lot of fun stuff coming out on Eichenwald. They did the standard Farah defense on point one and were very, very strong there until we saw Lynx really get his tracking, like you had mentioned as well, on that McCree. But I can see in these DPS tanks the way that they're impacting the matchups. Like you had said, the more seasoned British Hurricanes, they're definitely coming out to play today, and they're showing us why they are the favorites in this tournament.
Well, I also want to go into the nitty gritty of some of those team comps, Panda. So we had Ilios. It was 2-1, and Team Biscuits took that first round pretty easily, to be honest. And that's the best they've played all series so far. One thing that I wanted to talk about, though, is let's go back to Well just for a second in the team comp with Fusions on Winston. And the way that that was set up, and Nesh on that 76. How are those characters interacting with each other to have provided such an easy way for them to camp on to that point and not cede any space to Tea and Biscuits?
It's a pretty hard and strong and scary composition to walk into, considering that you're walking into the Shield Maiden Brigitte, as we know and love her today. And then you also have the dive tanks of Happy Cool and Fusions, Winston and Diva, respectively. They're able to control so much high ground and spacing that you only have these very narrow passageways on Well to walk through, that you're pretty much stuck in between a rock and a pulse gun along with Discord Orb, because we got to see that Zenyatta from Bucket playing hand in hand in that back line with Nesh on that Soldier 76, while the front line was just being sped around on Funny Astro. His Lucio was very surgical on that map in particular. That, again, to our previous point here on the desk, that British Hurricanes are just, they're able to play their game with a smile on their face. Lucio just speeding around, just being that gnat in your ear that you're just trying to swat away while you're being dove by tanks and just being shot down by a pulse rifle. It's very hard to deal with, and we can see British Hurricanes really showing us again why they're so strong and why they're favored to take this entire tournament.
So the Hurricane, very strong, we know that. However, they have been taken to 5 games before here in Trials, and that was against HSL. You know, HSL are 0-2, so we know it can happen. For Nowry, do you think Tea and Biscuits has an opportunity here to reverse sweep? And how are they going to get there if they do?
So, I mean, we all heard Cthulhu's prediction earlier on the desk. I absolutely think that they do have an opportunity to pull this back around, but really, it's got to come down to their head game. Right now, they're in the wrong headspace, and added onto that, the fact that they're already down 2 points, it's not good. It's not looking good, and they're not feeling good, obviously. So I think at the moment, the biggest thing that they need to be doing, they need to get their headspace right, and they need to give their players the freedom to flex a little bit more. I want to see some more interesting compositions. I mean, Sombra and Doomfist coming through from Hurricane was utterly dismantling them. And I mean, Tea and Biscuits is a team that we know are really good at dismantling a GOAT's composition, which means they know how to run those compositions, the counter comps, and they're just allowing Hurricane to run all over them. So, yeah, definitely, if they can just get their head into the right space and get those swaps going, get their compositions flowing, they've definitely got a chance.
Panda, same question to you, my friend.
Honestly, the only 2 maps in that point that was made with HSL taking to a map 5 for the British Hurricanes.
Was
That
Control
was
and Hybrid.
That's
That's
very
right.
right, my friend. That's
Yep.
very right. And the two maps that we just saw British Hurricanes take very convincingly was Control and Hybrid.
Control and
So-
Hybrid. Yep.
Exactly. So I it's hard to judge for sure. I'm no sentient panda from the future, but what I can tell you is that pandas might be right over cats this time around. I'm sorry, Cthulhu, but it just may be true that British Hurricanes are very strong coming into this week. They had taken their minds to that proverbial drawing board that we have seen many teams go back to, and they're going to be coming back stronger. I expect no changes to come in future maps, that they're going to take this as convincing that they showed us in these past two maps.
Well, one thing is for sure, Panda, is that the British Hurricane have been making Team Biscuits play their game and play their style so far. The big hero pool of Kib is definitely a part of that. He was able to bring out, I think, 3 different characters throughout this series. And in today's day and age, in that meta, that actually, I think, would be on the higher end of most things that you will see. Will we see some more on Assault? It will be Hanamura. But first, we're going to take a quick break. We will be right back.
Cruising my way down the street. I ain't got no weight on my feet. It feels like I'm floating. Feels like I'm floating. Ain't nobody like you. Yeah, you got me. Tripping all over my shoes. Yeah, I'm falling for you. Ain't nobody like you. Yeah, you got me. Tripping all over my shoes, yeah, I'm falling for you. Ain't nobody like you. Ain't nobody like you. You might be out of my league, but I caught you staring at me. It feels like I'm floating. Feels like I'm floating. Tripping all over my shoes, yeah, I'm falling for you. Ain't nobody like you, yeah, you got me. Tripping all over my shoes, yeah, I'm falling for you. Ain't nobody like you. Ain't nobody like you.
Welcome back, everybody. It is time for Map 3 between British Hurricane and Tea and Biscuits. This is EU Contenders Trials Season 3 2018, Week 2, Day 1. I am Raptor here with Ryan Central on Broadcast.gg, and it's time for Hanamura, our third map of the set. Ryan, you ready to get into this one?
I am. I'm really interested to see what strategies are run in this sort of day and age. Both teams not really playing the meta. I think both teams are quite used to playing against teams that I would say maybe dedicate too much to that composition of triple tank, triple support. Yeah, I don't think any of the Contenders Trials teams are just, will play this all the time. Maybe other than Oshpick Warriors, we seem to sort of go to that almost, not all of the time, but when necessary. Team Biscuits and British Hurricane, however, playing an all assortment of heroes. I'm pretty sure we've seen all of them apart from like Symmetra and Torbjorn and Bastion, I think.
Yeah, I won't. Hey, don't speak too soon. We might see some of that before this set's over, but it might be as long as just Hanamura or a full 5 maps. I'd love to see it. But nevertheless, Team Biscuits going to be in the red first on offense, breaking out Hanamura, her British Hurricane in the blue, and their composition shouldn't surprise anyone. Bucket on the Zenyatta, Funny Astro on the Ana, but they're running the Sombra and Doomfist as usual. Team Biscuits, though, they're bringing out the Hammond straight up right out of spawn to try and give themselves some way to go right in. Look at that, just the pendulum swinging right through mid, and they go in onto the point. Team Biscuits look at a snowball on this tank, and they find him. Fusions has nowhere to run. He gets locked down in the corner, and now British Hurricane getting picked off one at a time. Nesh does get Webster. It's a 5v4 situation, but Team Biscuits continues to push the advantage. A Biotic on Rotten's not even going to stop him from getting rid of Funny Astro, and Tea and Biscuits find British Hurricane every corner they run to, and they'll get point A.
Triple DPS with a Hammond as a main tag. That's something that I've never seen before, and I hope I see more of, because that was intense. That was just the Hammond rolling in, creating space for the Genji, the Doomfist to dive in, find an opportunity to pick a target, go from there. Nesh on the Sombra, who does he go for? Who does he try and hack? Because everybody in Team Biscuits side is dangerous. Roten does get taken out on the Hammond, so this might start to fall apart from Team Biscuits. But when they get momentum, they can take people out. So really interesting comp. It's going to be interesting to see if they change it. However, British Hurricanes just kind of cleared it up fairly easily on that point.
Yeah, the snowball ends right there, but 6 minutes and 40 seconds on the clock for Tea and Biscuits. A lot to work with, and they have a bunch of ult charge to boot as well. They're about to get a third ultimate here for Fillion, who's now on the Genji. Valmaster still on the Doomfist, about to get as close to their ultimate as Roten is about to on their Hammond. So Tea and Biscuits now going to push through mid, poke a little bit. Oh, but they lose Lynx and Roten as they're going for, I believe, an upper left side flank. They both get taken out, and British Hurricane reset again.
I think that's the issue with attacking second point on Hanamura with this kind of composition. You can try and split up, but if British Hurricane can spot what direction you're coming from, they can take you apart. They have Nesh running around the Sombra, scouting out information, looking out the front door guide. They're going left, they're going mid even, or they're going right. So they can sort of nip it in the bud before it gets too prevalent. So Team Biscuits can need to regroup, find an opportunity, and take that route, whatever they're going to take, very quickly. Otherwise, British Hurricane will stop them before they're even through the front door.
And the rally going to be used to usher Team Biscuits right in. Fillion diving into the back line. There's a sleep, though, on the Hammond. And Fillion doesn't have any backup now. Has to get out of dodge. Now Transcendent's thrown down. They're going to rush right back off the point. And just as quickly as they dove in, Team Biscuits taken out or put down into the grave.
And now we're starting to see Team Biscuits changing up the composition. Lynx is locked into the Zarya, now onto the McCree. They're still trying to work out how to break this apart. British Hurricane only used 2 ultimates in that fight, both support ultimates, with Rally about to come online. Nesh, Happy Cool, Infusions. They didn't really need to bother pressing Q. They didn't need to, because the Transcendence covered the Dragon Blade coming in, and the Nano Boost onto Fusions just meant that they could clear up any pesky people on Team Biscuits' side. They crumbled, unfortunately, under the heat and pressure a little bit. And the Team Biscuits changing up their lineup just a little bit more, something that's a little bit more straightforward, I'd say.
They have to be careful, though. Everyone is clept up for Team Biscuits, and there's an EMP waiting from Nesh, and also a sleep there as Palmaster slept and then taken out by Bucket. And that'll be now Team Biscuits again, kind of, limping into the next fight with a disadvantage. They're going to fall back. They lose Roten, and British Hurricane not only winning the fight, but still have a huge ultimate advantage.
And they're just making it look really simple. It does ask a lot of questions on what Team Biscuit wants to do. Fusion's just going to go poke ahead, doesn't need the ult charge, but if he can get a pick to stall it out a little bit more, then fair dues, because they still have over 4 minutes of the point to hold on to. It's at 0%, so really, all I need to do is keep it that way, and they have that EMP, that Primal Rage, and Self-Destruct. They just don't need to use it, and the other ultimates are coming online fairly quickly. Lynx now is changing over to the Widowmaker. Let's see if he can counter-snipe Kib a little bit more. Maybe that's the opportunity that they're looking for.
Yeah, and Team Biscuits can go for those pokes. They need to build some ult charge so they can just kind of poke at the front line of British Hurricane, try and build that up. Because really is only the barrier of Fusions to stop that from happening. And Team Biscuits going to take their time looking to see which way they want to go. Looks like they're going for a top right push. Oh, they snuff out there, at least find the Sombra, but Nesh gets out using their translocator just in time. Still has the EMP. Team Biscuits has to know that. But they're still clumping up in this right side push. So now they're facing a little bit of pressure on the mid-high ground area, and the Nano Boosted Fusions goes right in, has the Primal Rage to use on the outside of this Nano Boost, but isn't really taking too much damage and falls back pretty cleanly. Team Biscuits haven't lost anybody, but they are building up ult charge on the right side. They're pushing here yet again. Webster about to have sound barrier. The British Hurricane, 4 ultimates, and one of them used. There's the EMP that they're waiting to use. Nesh goes super low HP-wise. Can't follow up entirely, but gets bolstered right back up. No big kills for British Hurricane off that EMP. They've only really slowed down Team Biscuits, and Team Biscuits not going to give up much more after that. They're going to reset themselves.
The only person that they lost was Mini Kunga, of course, loses pretty much all of his health as Zenyatta when those shields go down from the EMP. The British Hurricane are just doing a really good job of keeping up the pressure, making sure that Team Biscuits can't get any ground. Link's very lucky to not get taken out that fight. It's just, again, struggling to find a pick, but now we're seeing Team Biscuits being in this point for quite some time. British Hurricane can't keep up this pressure forever, or at least it may not seem that way.
Oh, and trying to get right into the back line there is the self-destruct. Doesn't find Pater. Another self-destruct thrown down. That's down on the low ground below the bridge. That doesn't find anything. 2 ultimates burn, nothing for it. Now Fusion against that Bree has to use the Primal Rage to stay alive. And then there's a Transcendence comes out from Minikunga. Now contesting the point here, Fusions lands right back down and then gets out. Joining is Zenyatta as Team Biscuits finding kills and Fusions to jump right back in because Team Biscuits getting all these kills, getting all this advantage. A Transcendence comes out, might be too little too late. A Blade, though, is going to pair off with Kib's Dragon Blade, Nano Boosted Blade, that is, but he gets battered back. Can't get the kills. 2 minutes and 4 seconds left on the clock. Lynx finds one on Bucket, then another one from Mini Kruger. Team Biscuits storming through this point, and they're trying to reduce British Hurricane to dust, and Rotten does just that with the self-destruct on the Fusion. Winston there. And Team Biscuits will complete the map using everything they had, throwing the kitchen sink and then some to complete the map.
And they had to, really. They only got... it took them about 6 minutes to get that point in the end because they had 1 minute and 56 seconds left. Now British Hurricane just effectively have to do that a little bit faster if they have the opportunity. Team Biscuits looking a little bit more composed. I think Fillion on the Brigitte was a solid pick to allow them to push through an area where effectively Fusions was either diving on or Kib on the Widowmaker was getting picks before the fight had even started. Having that CC and a little bit of appeal for the rest of your team and especially your supports did allow them to take this high ground, and that pressure then became too much for British Hurricane to keep holding on to that objective. Might have been able to do better in that engagement in particular, but the rest of their defense, other than first point of course, was a lot more concise and a lot more controlled. Now they just need to attack better.
Yeah, and they'll have to see what they can do against, Nesh's Or really, I mean, British Hurricane, it's interesting because Team Biscuits like hasn't been running Sombra against like British Hurricane this entire set, and now it seems like Phillian might switch over to the Sombra themselves, and very often a Sombra will be the best answer to an opposing Sombra. So it's interesting that Team Biscuits has kind of waited this long to potentially try it now here on defense.
I guess they're just sort of prepping for a composition of British Hurricane, haven't really had the chance to run. That being just, that actual tank composition. British Hurricane have really much stayed away from it. It's not as if they played it a lot before, but you could definitely tell that they're not really wanting to run this composition. Speaking to Fusions, as I did before, he says that they can play it, but they don't overly rely on it. So we're starting to see them flex a little bit more. They're not having to use this composition. And that suits them just fine because Team Biscuits is really good at taking that comp apart. So they're just going to go, well, we're not going to play it then. If you guys are really good at being anti-goats, then we're just not going to play it. So we'll be fine. But now they're going to be sort of pushing out with the Sombra Hanzo comp. As I said, lots of flex picks, lots of big hero pool diversity. Are they going to be able to do it, take first point just as quick as Team Biscuits did?
Yeah, and just at that moment, Kib switching back over to the Genji. Not going to go for the Hanzo, but still trying to maintain that high verticality, get that mobility in, and we're likely looking for these nano blades with the help of Bucket. Team Biscuits now holding right at the choke point here with these two tanks right there. Biotic grenaded though is Val Master. He has to fall back, and Team British Hurricane gonna take that Q and go right in, trying to isolate the Diva, but Roden gets out as well. Kib and Nesh will find squishy kills in the Ana and Doomfist, and British Hurricane gonna snowball off that, trying to stagger the rest of Team Biscuits, who are looking for a way out. They can't commit to the point, they can't get back to spawn, they hit the graveyard.
And they just sort of take apart Team Biscuits bit by bit. Phillian is going to stall on the point. They really managed to get as much done as he may have hoped, been 56% on an ult charge. With just a minute played, it's not as if we should have his ultimate by then, but really did struggle to go through. Lynx is on the Widowmaker now, and Phillian now going to be on the Brigitte, so they're just trying to make sure that British Hurricane can't keep up this momentum. Much like Team Biscuits couldn't keep up their momentum attacking second, but British Hurricane are running a very different composition to what Team Biscuits tried, a little bit more concise, and they're going to look for a pick that might open up this match a little bit more.
Nano boost thrown down by Bucket. British Hurricane forcing Team Biscuits, at least Valmaster, off the point, but Team Biscuits still have a few members on it. This EMP, though, they're going to get hit by it as Nesh jumps right in, bolstered up by the sound barrier. There's nowhere for Roden to run. They're going to get melted down, and again, Killian left as one of the last on it. Kib using a Dragon Blade nonetheless. It might even be overkill at this point, but better to be safe than sorry. Team Biscuits, though, all right, there we go. So we have a Primal Raging Nano boosted Winston. Still the point, but Self-Destruct takes it down from Apicool. Now 6 minutes and 3 seconds on the clock. British Hurricane, a lot of time here. And Self-Destruct on the point, only going to delay it. British Hurricane gets right back onto it. Team Biscuits, nowhere to be found. And there's about 6 minutes earned there from British Hurricane on their offensive attempt.
That Dragon Blade was a little bit early, didn't, used it to zone off the rest of Team Biscuits to make sure that they didn't touch the point. But the Primal Rage and the Nano Boost at the same time allowed them to stop it just a little bit longer. But that coordination and skill that British Hurricane have was able to just sort of outwin that fight where some teams might have lost the objective at like 99% or so. So British Hurricane, and looking in a perfect spot really, the 6 minutes to attack this next point. Team Biscuits have 2. The question I have, though, is whether Team Biscuits is going to run that triple DPS Hammond composition that they ran on this first point, and whether British Hurricane is expecting it or not.
Seems like they're probably going to end up running like the same composition that they're going to run, and now Team Biscuits is kind of like on them to maybe subvert the expectations of British Hurricane with a slightly different composition. But Valmaster potentially going on the Doomfist, which would be a bit of switch for them as they've been mostly on tank these days. See, you said Torb. Team Biscuits might go Torb on offense, man. You might have gotten your wish, so we'll see if they get out with it.
It's the time, and what Team Biscuits did right at the start of their attack is they ran for DPS. Roten was on the Sombra, went ahead to scout to see what there was, came back, changed to Hammond, then went on through, and it looks like they're going to be doing this composition again. Roten is going to go up ahead, see what's going on, come back, maybe change to Hammond, maybe stay on the Sombra if he can make good use out of it. But we are going to see this composition yet again. Will British Hurricane have an answer to it?
And there's not a lot of time for Team Biscuits to work with. 1 minute and 40 seconds on the clock. British Hurricane going to let Team Biscuits come to them, as we've seen them do time and time again this set. Really only Fusions at that choke point. And now British Hurricane was waiting for Team Biscuits to dive in, but still the advantage of Team Biscuits in favor as they get kills from that Bray and the Genji. 6v4 situation, and they steamroll just like we saw last time. Still, the support line for British Hurricane bolstered. Bucket's still alive. but Half a Cool will go down nonetheless. That'll be a minute and 15 seconds here. Tea and Biscuits about to take away point A, and they're going to try and push on point B using only the Brie to take up the rest of this point. British Hurricane now has to avoid the snowball from Tea and Biscuits. It's inevitably coming.
This composition from Team Biscuits effectively has no backline. They're already there attacking the first point. Everybody's just frontline, just running at them. And that's a big pulse bomb that might open this up with Funny Astro going down, although it's trading, and it looks like British Hurricane yet again are able to stem this flow.
Yeah, Tea and Biscuits kind of getting caught out individually there. British Hurricane chasing down and staggering whoever tries to retreat out of mid. And they hold on very strong. Not only that, Bucket's about to have Nano Boost, and British Hurricane getting closer and closer toward EMP as well. So Tea and Biscuits have to know that they can't be clumping up like we saw last time. And they only have a minute, really, so they don't have much time for another clean fight.
No, exactly, and they have a lot to do. They're going to change to this composition that is very much staple right now. They're going to have to try and get some percentage on the point. This British Hurricane has so much time, but that's a big anti-nade.
What a biotic there from Bucket, and Tea and Biscuits just crumble at the end of that one, and there's nowhere for them to run. Fusions on the Nano Boosted Primal Raging Winston is more than enough to send Tea and Biscuits back. Now 33 seconds on the clock, time for probably one more push, but Tea and Biscuits don't have a single ult on the board. Even Link's going to McCree to try and make things work on the fly.
Did you see that Doomfist with Kib's kill there? It had the Primal Rage icon with the glasses in the kill feed. Oh, I love it when a Doomfist is able to get a Primal Rage kill. It's amazing. But Nesh does have that EMP. Is able to play this out. Team Biscuits are going to run straight into it by the looks of it.
And now Tea and Biscuits looking to rotate on the high ground, but then decide just to jump right in on mid. Rotan leading the front line here. And there's the EMP we're looking for, but it doesn't really get a ton of clean targets. Nevertheless, Tea and Biscuits already have a lower, disadvantage here, player disadvantage. So even if the EMP wasn't as solid as it needed to be, British Hurricane already have control. It's a 6v2 situation here. Tea and Biscuits falling left and right. Overtime ticking away. I think that's as far as they're going to get here, Ryan. That's it. 3 points on the board. And now British Hurricane have their win condition. All they got to do is get point B, and they'll take the series.
And they did it in such a quick fashion last time that you'd assume that they'd be able to do it again. Just a case of getting the first point as quick as they did last time, and then a third on this final objective. So fairly straightforward for them. We saw a similar thing basically coming out of Eichenwald, and they did quick work of that too. But man, I love this composition that Team Biscuits run on first point Hanamura. I almost feel like I need to try it out. As somebody that is an advocate for one trick in Hammond, obviously, I think I'd like to see more of the hamster in our games, because we've only seen him that once, I think, so far. In all the trails, right? Or maybe you've spotted a couple of wrecking balls now and again.
Yeah, it's definitely like a character that comes up with control, but infrequent. I definitely agree. I'd like to see more with this character. But I think you pointed it out with this, a specific composition that we saw, that very strong being aggressive with that push in point A, but point B hard to take because you don't have like a back line. Like it's just like front line. You just go super aggressive. When point B, there's so much open room for the defense to work with. They can kind of just suck you in and spit you out. So I think that's kind of the weakness of that composition, is that doesn't work throughout the entirety of the map.
There's also that ability when you're the backline and the defending team on the second point, that you have a lot more room to get out and disengage, whereas the first point, you're very much dedicated to it. And also, effectively, when you're running at Hammond, they're running this composition on defense now, which is very interesting, is that effectively you miss out the choke point. You don't poke there at all. You don't get stuck there at all. You just go, we're just going to bombard straight on through and attack the objective. And if there's somebody stood there, they're going to be taken down fairly quickly. But running this on defense, now I'm interested to see what they're going to do and how they're going to play it. But British Hurricane have spotted this, and I think they're going to change up their lineup to, you can probably guess maybe what. Or just Kib changing over to Brigitte for the CC. Looks like way.
I mean, why not? You have a bunch more squishy characters to deal with, but still keep the summer, because you get the EMP, it'll be hard for them to run away. And they don't even need it at this point. British Hurricane just melting them down. There's no barriers really. Team Biscuits can't really hide behind anything. They've lower health pools, those squishies, and British Hurricane kind of just walk right over them.
There's a lot of things to work out with that strategy, I think, and British Hurricane have got that knowledge to go and change anything that they need to. They didn't have to change much. Just putting Kib onto Brigitte seemed to be enough to get an extra bit of CC to make sure that Roten on the Wrecking Ball just couldn't run around freely or roll around freely. But they have 5.5 minutes on the clock to get 33%, and they're going to take an aggressive hold on this high ground.
Yeah, Team Biscuits trying to kind of choke British Hurricane before they get onto the point here, and working out a little bit so far. Funny Astro goes down to Lynx, and now Half a Cool gets slept, and they're out by themselves and get hit by a Brad Grenade and likely melted here. Roten also finds fusions. Half a Cool indeed will go down. So Team Biscuits good positioning from them to stop British Hurricane. And British Hurricane, though, getting uncomfortably close to that first tick of the first third, but Team Biscuits keeps them at bay.
And they have to do it for just under 5 minutes now. So it's a lot to ask. As you sort of pointed out with EMP, that could be enough to completely clear the objective, work towards it. Even if Nesh doesn't get much with the 1 EMP, might be enough for the second or the third if they have enough time. British Hurricane just need to build up some ultimates to try and get a pick, but Bucket straight away taking out the fight by Lynx. They're just going to group up. They have the time. They're just going to relax a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. There's no rush here at all for British Hurricane. You have 1/3 of the point to take. You have over 4 minutes to work with. Just get those ultimates and let them all loose at one time. But Team Biscuits have to know that they're going to try and build to their ultimates as quick as possible. And British Hurricane, you just push in aggressively, not give Team Biscuits too much time to poke at them. Lynx has a high noon, and they're getting attention of the Diva before they let that go. But there it is, hits Q. Now Nash isn't on the in room to get any. They've used their Diva to self-destruct and not defense matrix, but Lynx was so far away from everyone, couldn't get any kills off of it. Valmaster with one on Funny Astro, another biotic grenade, keep rotating below about half HP, but they can't heal. And then there's another one finally boosted up there by Minigunga. Team Biscuits with another solid win here on British Hurricane, and again not letting them get to that first third.
Being able to take out Funny Astro very early in that fight was enough to be able to win it. British Hurricane were piling on the pressure. The objective was ticking up in their favor, and they did force Team Biscuits to use the high noob, but Lynx pretty much already has another one. He's 60% on the way to having it and able to get good picks and zone out British Hurricane from the point. But Nesh, having that EMP, Bucket now on the Zenyatta is going to sort of be able to put a Discord arm on a target, maybe take him out, be able to get that pick to start up a fight. It's going to be pivotal if they can manage it.
British Hurricane just sitting on that 1 EMP from Nesh, and that's it. But Funny Astro's getting close to a sound barrier. Team Biscuits, though, deciding to hit the go button, going right up onto the point here, while the Nano boosted Valmaster dives right in, and the EMP's waiting for it, but Nesh goes out immediately from Lynx. Now Valmaster using the Meteor Strike to get up from the high ground, going down low, sees the rest of the team still hanging out on the point, and the Cree will pick up one. And now it's self-destruct coming up on the high ground. And that catches two. Fusions and Bucket can't get out of the corridor in time. Now 2 minutes and 47 seconds of the clock. Valmaster battered away at 27 HP, but bolstered by the Mercy. Kib resetting. And British Hurricane stunned yet again.
They're keeping this aggression up on the defensive Team Biscuits. The British Hurricane, to an extent, are starting to get comfortable. They're on the high ground. They're able to survive and get a couple of picks themselves. But the aggression coming out of Team Biscuits, especially with how we saw the Doomfist being used to just jump in and do an insane amount of damage, just meant that they're able to sort of control and dictate fights. They're going to switch off a bit. They're going to go somewhere a little bit different. But it did prove enough to sort of scare British Hurricane a little bit and get a couple of picks.
Yeah, I mean, Team Biscuits really kind of now forcing British Hurricane to really step things up here, because now it's 2 minutes on the clock they've been reduced down to, and that can be eaten away as well. Sound barrier coming out from Funny Astro. British Hurricane trying to usher the way onto the point on the back of that sound barrier, but here's the high noon from Lynx. That McCree swap, he already has a high noon ready and waiting, zoning out British Hurricane so they can't step foot on the point. Now pushing in aggressively, but no kills so far from Team Biscuits in the past few seconds. Half a cool, and now Fusion's up on the point, gets biotic, Fusion's gets slept as well as their primal raging, and then Nesh picks up the kill, and then gets a third one, 2.5 that is, off that high noon. Half a cool also getting on the board, and British Hurricane just like that, stealing it away from Team Biscuits in a blink of an eye. They will take Hanamura, and now they're 3-0 in the set. That'll give them the victory.
I really like watching the pressure build as British Hurricane are just able to sort of bide their time. As you pointed out with the high noon, it was there, but British Hurricane placed themselves in a position where it just didn't bother them. So ultimately, that just meant the British Hurricane were playing the waiting game a lot of the time, and you saw them sort of wait there patiently. Then as soon as you saw Team Biscuits use ultimates and not really get much use out of them, that's where the aggression came out of Fusions and Happy Cool diving on targets and being able to create a little bit more space for Kib on the McCree, just the McCree of British Hurricane in general, to get onto the high ground, high noon, and create even more space for them to be able to take the point. So nice and solid. It did look like Team Biscuits for a second there might be able to hold for the whole portion of that attack. But ultimately, I think it was too much of a time bank for them to realistically hold 33% on fourth point.
And after that one, British Hurricane 3-0 in Contenders Trials. Now 1-2 here for Team Biscuits. What do you think is a major takeaway for Team Biscuits at the end of the set?
That comp that they've been running on Hanamura, I really like it. I think there's a lot that could be done with it, even just more than the first point on Hanamura, right? I think if teams can work out several ways to try it out against different compositions on different maps, that could go a long way. It'd be nice to see triple DPS make their way back, and I think with Hamid instead of a Winston, opens up a whole lot more avenues and opportunities for them. So they might be onto something there with that composition. Otherwise, I think the British Hurricane are just sort of showing their practice, their discipline. They're making sure that effectively they're not going to make the same mistakes that landed them here in Contenders trials themselves. Team Biscuits just need to, I guess, play for points. Try not to get 4-0'd. Try and win this next map, which will be an escort one.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will be getting to that fourth map on the other side of this quick break. So don't go anywhere. More of the set between British Hurricane and Team Biscuits coming your way after a quick break.
Talk myself in circles all night long and sleep through the morning. Is it my fault? Is it my fault? Is it my fault? I can't keep these thoughts at rest. Is it my fault if I can't calm myself down? They won't let me take a breath. Is it my fault? Is it my fault? Is it my fault? Is it my fault? I can't keep these thoughts at rest. Is it my fault if I can't calm myself down? They won't let me take a breath. Keep counting change to buy myself some time. To sort through my neoplastic mind. If I run away and change my name, then maybe I'll find a new perspective in time. Is it my fault? Is it my fault? Is it my fault? I can't keep these thoughts at rest. Is it my fault if I can't calm myself down? They won't let me take a breath. Is it my fault? Is it my fault?
Welcome back, everybody. It is time for map 4 between British Hurricane and Team Biscuits. British Hurricane have taken the set 3-0. We got to play it all the way through here at EU Contenders Trial Season 3, 2018. Coverage brought to you by Broadcast.gg. I'm still Rapture, still here with Ryan Central. We're going into Rialto for this fourth map. Ryan, ready to do some sightseeing?
I like watching Rialto. It's one of those maps where anything goes, which is quite interesting to see on a pure escort map when you compare it to Route 66, Watch Project Gibraltar, and of course Junkertown, which have their own strategies in place. Rialto feels that you can play a lot of things. So Team Biscuits on this attack are going to bring out the Farah, they're going to bring out the Widowmaker. Long sight lines mean that both these heroes are fairly good, whereas British Hurricane want to play up close and personal with Doomfist, which is literally his fist, and then Sombra being able to hack you probably from behind you. So interesting composition so far.
Yeah, and Team Biscuits using Fillion to get that high ground air superiority here and do some scouting, put some pressure on the back line of British Hurricane, and so far working out. Team Biscuits kind of cruising through this mid area, and British Hurricane, like usual, giving Team Biscuits room to work with, as they're probably looking to just fight more in the courtyard area rather than in this corridor. But now British Hurricane, they really don't have much of a choice, and Team Biscuits come to them, and they punish once more. Two down go Zenyatta, Valmaster as well, and Team Biscuits reduced to dust. British Hurricane convincingly winning that one before it gets to the courtyard, and they've reduced about a minute off the clock here for Team Biscuits.
It's a really interesting holdout. British Hurricane Bucket on the Ana is doing so well to maintain their alive state, not dying basically, whilst Team Biscuits tries to dive them. Meanwhile, Fusions is diving into the backline of Team Biscuits at the same time and finding really effective work. Fillion and Lynx now running double sniper, again, very good on his first point of Rialto, and they know that they can't really dive into the backline as Fusions is going to do what he's doing right now, try and get the picks, but now he's been caught out. Big bomb out Happy Cool, but it's about even. Team Biscuits might be able to take this point now, or at least get it moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's 3 kills off the bat right there. And they get the res on Fillion, so a big advantage for Team Biscuits. And they still have Lynx in the Widowmaker, who's doing a lot of shots, unadulterated here, unmitigated, doing a lot of damage for the rest of Team Biscuits just to clean up easily. Now 2 minutes and 17 seconds up on the clock, and Team Biscuits using their front line to keep British Hurricane at bay as long as possible. So the fight really just happens at the checkpoint itself.
Exactly. They want to make sure that they can get a good EMP off too, and Team Biscuits want to take as much ground as possible, yet not overextend because their composition doesn't really favor it. The Widowmaker, Hanzo, want to be a little bit further back than your usual DPS may want to be. So now Hurricane are going to touch, and the EMP goes off.
EMP goes off, but Rotten immediately responds to the self-destruct of their own, and Havical didn't have one for theirs, the combo off the EMP. So Team Biscuits coming out on top, able to weather the storm through the EMP. Team British Hurricane doesn't really have follow-ups there, and Team Biscuits get the win as a result. They're able to stagger both the Lucio and likely the Diva here as well as they get this first checkpoint, that is. Kib, though, they're still going to worry about, finds a pick there onto Lynx in the opposing Widowmaker counterpoint part there. British Hurricane still contesting, not letting Team Biscuits get this easily. But there's the Primal Rage. Fusions goes down. There's a sound barrier, but right through the point there is Dragon Strike. British Hurricane has to take some cover here, and Team Biscuits find them individually, melting them down. And a nice shot there. Kib goes down, half cool as well, and Team Biscuits take the first checkpoint.
You could tell that British Hurricane were really dedicated to holding that point as long as possible. They nano boosted a baby Diva so Happy Cool could get back into mech. That's how much they wanted to contest that point. They were dedicating ultimates to make sure that they could stall it for a little bit longer. But now Bucket is going to change over to the Moira. Might also explain the nano boost a little bit more. Nesh is getting low, but it's building up an EMP fairly quickly, trying to find that balance between getting a good amount of aggression whilst also not dying. So now British Hurricane are going to use some aggressive ultimates to win this point.
Oh, and Fillion gets caught in the crossfire. Havical fighting with the self-destruct. And the res will come out on Fillion, but still a 6v5 situation here for British Hurricane, using fusions on that Primal Raging Winston to get everyone of Team Biscuits out of the way. And that will be kills for British Hurricane. Easy ones there. Valmaster fighting Kid, but really they're just going to get staggered for the troubles. Webster also getting put down to the ground. Team Biscuits losing control of the point at the 2-minute and 45-second mark.
You got a good example of it there when the camera went to like third person. How Fusions and Happy Cool are almost splitting apart Team Biscuits. They go in as a full squad to Team Biscuits, trying to push on through, but then when Happy Cool and Fusions jump in, you have 3 players on one side of them, 3 players on the other. So they're doing a really good job of making sure that Team Biscuits can't stay together as a unit. Big EMP, it just means the British Hurricane are going to win out this fight too.
Yeah, that's pretty much all they wrote. Speaks for themselves, and British Hurricane with an easy win. Team Biscuits didn't see the EMP coming. They're all clumped up towards that bridge. They all get taken out.
Very clean, very precise. Is everything you'd want an EMP to be. Payload is in a nice position for British Hurricane to use a bit of cover, keep control of it, but Happy Cool is overextended. There's no fusions there to meet with him, so gets demeched. Now this might be an opportunity for Team Biscuits to push on through, make sure that this payload gets a little bit further than 47 meters.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity because British Hurricane didn't really have any ultimates to respond with. They didn't have like a Dragon Strike just to stop literally Team Biscuits from running right at them. So British Hurricane losing bodies, but they're still putting on quite a fight here despite the payload moving forward. Kid able to demech Roten, and Team Biscuits just gonna not be too aggressive. They are gonna fall back, realizing British Hurricane is gonna replenish their hold here. and things halt for a little bit here. Oh, all right, so now they're going to go in. They're not going to let T and Biscuits just kind of wait it out. Have Fusions and Havoc going right in. Primal Rage and a self-destruct, and no one can take cover. T and Biscuits too busy with the Winston, and they get taken out. 3K from Havoc. Fusions and Funny Astro also getting on the board, and T and Biscuits just crumble. Minute and 5 seconds now on the clock for this push.
British Hurricane just have the finger on the pulse so much that they're able to sort of dedicate Team Biscuits uncertainty of whether they want to push ahead or whether they want to get back. So the Diva Bomb comes in from Happy Cool and just splits them entirely. They're so good. This tank line is just so good at breaking apart Team Biscuits like the crumbly digestives that they are. And again, they're sort of winning out. It's trading a little bit, but now British Hurricane back out, and then they'll be in a second. They're hokey pokeying the hell out of this match.
Yeah, and Team Biscuits punishing British Hurricane for being too proactive on the defense. It worked the first time, didn't work again at that bridge, so Team Biscuits were also able to take out Fusions and get knocked into the water. There's the rally up there for Team Biscuits. Fillion throwing that down. They have Mini Kunga and Aroten, as well as Valmaster waiting on their ultimates. But of course, again, Nash with the EMP, and they can combo that a little bit with the Dragon Strike. Self-destruct comes in, almost gets caught on that life post a little bit. Aroten gets one. Now EMP into the Dragon Strike. There it is. But Team Biscuits aren't getting caught out by it. They're still on top. They have a 5v3 situation here, and it's just snowballing from there. The checkpoint is 0.06 meters away, and finally connected. Minute and 27 on the clock here for Tea and Biscuits out of that fight.
Yep, an extra 90 seconds left on the clock to attack this choke, which is very, very difficult to finish the map on. They're even looking at changing this map because it can be a little bit awkward to deal on this sort of defense at least. So Team Biscuits need a way to sort of work a way to break through it, and that's why this composition is going to come in. Just brute force the door down. British Hurricane are going to do the exact same thing. At this point, it's perfect for it.
Yeah. Now Nesh on the Zarya means that they're going to try and look to get as much charge as possible. You see how aggressive they're playing here, trying to build up that ult charge and energy charge there. And Bucket has the Transcendence ready to go if Team Biscuits wants to overstep their boundaries, and they shouldn't because they've already lost Valmaster and they're getting staggered out here. It's not what you want to be seeing under a minute. You haven't completed the map yet. Team Biscuits falling one by one. Fillion pretty much the only one who's going to get out of that one, and British Hurricane not only getting the win, but have a couple ultimates built off that one.
And that's the main thing, really, is that these tanks get their ultimates fairly quickly. Graviton, by the end of this fight, isn't looking likely for Lynx, but it certainly is for Nesh. Self-destruct does get used, doesn't get any picks. Fusion's building up an Earth Shatter, which again could be the deciding factor, but Valmaster's doing the same. And actually, Fusions gets taken out, so this is a good opening. The Team Biscuits push on through, 10 seconds left almost.
Yeah, Fusion's way out of position, gets Discord Orb, gets melted. Valmaster pinning Kib with the kill. Team Biscuits now have the advantage, but I mean, if there's less than 5 seconds left, they're going to be pushing through overtime the entirety of the rest of the map here. British Hurricane, they have the defensive advantage. They have the closer spawns. Team Biscuits, though, if they can hit one, like a Valmaster with one clean Earth Shatter, that could be it. And British Hurricane, no, they don't have much of a rush here, so they're going to slowly but surely approach the offense. Now looking to get the payload, sneaks the Graviton in, sucking everyone up for Team Biscuits, but no follow-up immediately. British Hurricane still have the ultimate to use, and they haven't burnt them just yet. Sound Barrier now thrown down by Funny Astro. He's running the Transcendence, him now with the rally, and Earth Shatter used as well for Fusion. Team Biscuits, everyone literally using every ultimate they have to sustain through overtime. Team Biscuits still coming out on top. Link super low, 35 HP, still stays alive, pushing the defense back towards spawn. The Zenyatta gets melted. The Omnic can definitely be used for metal elsewhere. And Team Biscuits finishing off the map. British Hurricane cannot stop them. It's not over just yet.
That sound barrier was the deciding factor to enable Team Biscuits to finish that map. Webster being able to keep the team alive whilst they're stuck in Graviton was huge, and the ability for Lynx to stay alive in that fight was also pretty big, going up against Bucket, who again just almost refused to die for a portion. But as I said, not many teams are able to finish out Rialto completely. Lots of teams tend to get stuck on the second to third area of the map. So now British Hurricane, it just kind of need to finish the map again with some extra time. No matter what, Team Biscuits is going to get another opportunity to attack with just a minute's worth of time. So British Hurricane just want to make sure that they can do it just a little bit faster than with 0 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah, this is again what we saw, you know, on Eichenwald, right? Where Tea and Biscuits, they completed the map, but they didn't have any time. So they set themselves into a pretty sticky situation against British Hurricane, who have shown they have great stamina over long fights. So when you leave them with a bunch of time to work with, and Team Biscuits, they don't have any attempt left on their own time, it's almost like inevitable that British Hurricane's eventually going to get that point. So now Team Biscuits going to try and change up history a little bit here. Can they stop British Hurricane from doing what they did to them on Eichenwald? Team Biscuits, again, with 0 time on the clock. So British Hurricane can not only take the entire 3 points here, but have a huge time clock advantage.
I think British Hurricane have put themselves in a great position to get promoted way back into Overwatch Contenders Season 3. Team Biscuits, even this map win might be enough to decide whether they'll be going up or down. So it is really important them to get some result out of this. A 4-0 in British Hurricane's favor isn't going to be sniffed at too much. It just, suits them better for the rest of this trials. Whereas Team Biscuits, it does matter to them a lot. How much is kind of uncertain right now, but it could be the difference between them going into Contenders or whether they'd be going straight back out again.
And this is big for British Hurricane too, because I believe they have the best map differential at 7-0 and 2 coming into this. So they're only going to extend that to 10-0 or even 11-0 and 2, right? If they get 4 map wins here, having that larger map differential, I mean, they'll hold onto that top spot in the group. So Team Biscuits could try and screw up British Hurricane a little bit map differential wise and then get this one win here. But again, this is a big hill to climb here for Team Biscuits, and already they're feeling the pressure as British Hurricane are not hesitating to object to holding the payload. But nevertheless, Fillion gets that pick on the Funny Astro, and like we've seen, losing Funny Astro in a fight early often stops British Hurricane from being very effective later in the fight. And you can see Team Biscuits will get these staggered kills one by one. British Hurricane falling after the death of Funny Astro, and Team Biscuits will take control of the payload.
With 3 minutes on the clock, it's a case of just trying to hold on. They do not get the resurrect for actually. Nesh manages to hack it before it goes on through, so it does provide British Hurricane a little bit of an opportunity. Plus one of their members is going to have to run all the way back from spawn, and you can sort of see that they're making sure that they're not showing up too much, that they're not going to get picked out of the sky by, Nesh's hack, I suppose, and then be taken down onto the ground and eaten alive. But Anadabis goes onto Fusions, and again, trying to separate the main tanks from the backline spots if they can.
Fusion gets slept as their nano booster jumps right up, but gets woken up and then taken down immediately as they are peeled away by Lynx, who cuts them down. Now is stealth destruct down from downtown, and Half a Cool hits the backboard, gets one on Webster. Now Lynx trying to stop the bleeding here as British Hurricane moving up forward, and now 56 HP for Lynx falls back down to the low ground. Nesh picks up 2. Minigun and Lynx have nowhere to run. Those snipers don't have that mobility to get away, despite the grab hook, and now Team Biscuits low on players. That first checkpoint is cruising. Those payloads cruising to that first checkpoint. Self-destruct in the back. Roten does find Funny Astro again. Funny Astro going down, but Nesh with the EMP. They are biotic though. They have to get in and try and do some damage. Valmaster on the primal rate finds the Ana, goes in for more, but Kid puts him down. Half a Cool gets knocked out of the cockpit, and they are put down to the ground. Team Biscuits just in time, holding on defense here at 1.34 meters.
I like watching Lynx's Widowmaker because you can tell that he's really cerebral with how he's positioning himself. He's, sitting really far back in case, Fusions wants to dive on him, create a little bit more space, make sure that Fusions is overextending. Or he can just be sat on the payload, being really aggressive, trying to get pot shots as people are trying to run back up. Because British Hurricane is still touching this point. They're still trying to make sure that this objective is contested, and they might just be able to pitch this.
Oh, and there's a barrage, and it's eaten up entirely by the Matrix of Half a Cool. Getting nothing, no value off of that one. Kid for 2, 6v4 situation for British Hurricane. They're certainly going to push that advantage. We're lower than a meter here, but Team Biscuits doesn't have any control of the payload. And that means British Hurricane is going to walk it in. Now 3 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock to work with. Team Biscuits still getting staggered. British Hurricane has the momentum. They're going to let that payload move over the bridges. Team Biscuits falls back to spawn.
And they still have a good amount of ultimates to use on this attack. The EMP is almost ready. It can be the difference between a engagement just completely nullified for Team Biscuits, but it also just might stall out the fight. We did see Nesh so far on this attack at least bring out a couple of EMPs, but not really have the massive successes we saw in other game types at least. The British Hurricane have a good amount. They're running that triple tank too. Skip now, building up Gravitons might be a good way to finish off these engagements. I'm just curious to see who Nesh is going to attack here, because Team Biscuits lineup is very, self-sufficient.
Oh, Fillion not there in time to get the stun in. So the self-destruct does not find the Reinhardt. Valmaster now way behind enemy lines and gets killed by Fusions. Team Biscuits not in a position to hold on. Everyone individually split up from one another, and British Hurricane just eating the leftovers out of the fridge. They're not that old. And 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock here. British Hurricane get that payload moving yet again.
Kib is actually switching over to Wrecking Ball in his triple tank lineup box now on the Zenyatta. They're changing up their lineup to look at what Team Biscuits are playing, so not quite sure what roles and what parts British Hurricane are trying to play here to nullify Team Biscuits' team comp, but I'm very curious to see this engagement as, again, Biscuits going in very aggressive.
Kib using the Hammond to just dislodge the entirety of Team Biscuits off the payload, and that sets him up for the self-destruct kills. Vatnacool gets the DMAC and 1, and then another one on Bowmaster. Minute and 56 seconds on the clock, and British Hurricane with another definitive fight win. And that switch from Kib over to the Wrecking Ball is certainly paying off already.
And now Nesh is on the Zarya, so they're running quad tank. Every single sort of iteration of Rialto that they go through, they're changing up their composition almost like on the pulse, really. Team Biscuits now don't really know how to counter British Hurricane because every engagement that they have, they're playing against different heroes, they're playing against different comps. But now it's leaning towards a quad tank composition the British Hurricane know and love. We're going back to that typical EU lineup. But instead of a Roadhog, we saw in Hammond. But now actually Brigitta's back. So again, another comp, another transition, almost seamlessly. The Team Biscuits are struggling to sort of grab onto this.
Oh, Earth Shatter laid down there by Valmaster, but British Hurricane helped out by Bucket's Transcendence, so no follow-up for Team Biscuits, unable to get kills, and then falling back is that Team Biscuits front line. They do have Lynx who just got the Graviton, could stop British Hurricane here. The British Hurricane not going to hesitate, they're going to push right in. Nesh try to get to a Graviton themselves. Graviton does come out, but no one for British Hurricane really gets caught. In fact, nobody does. A great evasion there by British Hurricane. Team Biscuits now, unfortunately, losing ultimates left and right and not finding value out of them. They'll also lose Rotan. Webster does have the sound barrier, but British Hurricane coming out on top on the kill feed, and Nesh is about to have a Graviton. So if Team Biscuits able to stay alive longer in this fight, they're going to get sucked up eventually. And a great Earth Shadow will put Webster on their ground, especially after Webster just used sound barrier. Cool gets the cleanup. Another Graviton. There's Nesh finally using it, and Team Biscuits get wiped up immediately. British Hurricane have the end of the map in their sights. It's pretty much right there. With just under 2 minutes, it's a great time bank to have against Team Biscuits, who now have to do a lot on defense to stop. Oh, there's a kill there for Cool. Stop British Hurricane from taking 4 maps in the series.
Yep, 1 minute and 50 seconds I think was on the clock, but it gets bumped up to 2 minutes and 51 because of Team Biscuits' ability to finish the map. They get extra time regardless.
Yes.
So now they have an opportunity to push themselves, preferably past first point, past that sort of final checkpoint before you go under that little archway and then across the bridge. Ideally, if you can get it past that, it gives you a good opportunity for an engagement, because as you sort of rightly pointed out with Hanamura, at least, just that you have less time than usual. Oh no, it was Eichenwald, sorry, where even then, British Hurricane have less time to sort of attack this first point as they would usually, so it's not as if they have a huge time bank to work with. So if Team Biscuits could get a bit of momentum in their favor, come out with a strategy that might take British Hurricane apart and put them in a position where they're a bit confused and not sure what to do, then that just might give them enough window of opportunity to actually take this map. So it's not dead and done just yet for Team Biscuits, but British Hurricane certainly looking the stronger side in all of this.
Absolutely, and your point earlier, I think, is really important, is talking about how British Hurricane can continue to make these changes on the fly, composition-wise, seamlessly, right? Like you would expect having all these changes means that they'd be behind in ultimate charge often, but British Hurricane showing that they can change and keep pace or even lead in ultimate charge, and that's why it's so hard for Team Biscuits to adapt against them, because they still have to not only change or defend against the change of composition, but all the ultimates that come with it. So Team Biscuits now seeing what British Hurricane has to offer. They're going to continue to push up, no changes on their composition. 45 seconds here, pretty much nothing here. Maybe 1 or 2 clean attempts. Webster though finds Nesh early, not Funny Astro, but again another member of British Hurricane going down before the fight really gets started. It's not really going to stop them too much, but the defense is going to give Team Biscuits room to work with.
You can see Lynx on screen, sort of sitting with the supports a little bit, wanting to peel for them, but as soon as Nesh went down in the fight, knowing that he wasn't there, able to create a little bit more space, go on a bit of a flank, try and find a way to sort of get a good long side, but Nesh actually getting a pick onto Mini Conga means it's a little bit split. Fusion's again going into the backline deep. Kib also been aggressive, only 9 seconds left on the clock. This payload might not even go any further.
Yeah, and even if Team Biscuits try to get back on time, I mean, the payload's so far away from them. British Hurricane are in complete control of the payload. Team Biscuits, though, they will get a contestation from Rotan, and that's not even enough to maintain possession. Rotan goes down. That might be it for Team Biscuits on offense. Now, British Hurricane, all they have to do is get to the courtyard, and they'll have a 4th map under their belt.
It's that pattern, right, that we saw at British Hurricane there. They almost gave Team Biscuits the impression that they had more space and area of control of the map to use, so they sort of spread out a little bit. Lynx, who was previously sat with his supports peeling for them, started to sort of stretch out and see if he can get a better sight line, but that's when Nesh came in on the Sombra into the backline to get the pick onto Mini Conga, dove in obviously with fusions on the Winston, and from there it was taken apart. So British Hurricane almost sort of making Team Biscuits think and feel more confident about pushes, and then just sort of just crushing their dreams a little bit. But this composition, whilst British Hurricane is locked in, may not be played, but I'd like to see it. This triple tank dive was something that a lot of people spoke about when Wrecking Ball was added into the game. Realistically, though, we haven't seen an awful lot of it used in the highest tier yet. It was a strategy to go, oh yeah, that might be cool, but never really saw much else of it.
Yeah, and Fusion starting out on the Hammond here potentially. They are on offense, so it can change and spawn. But I think that's important, seeing the conditioning that British Hurricane has on Team Biscuits, right? Like you make Team Biscuits separate by giving them more room to work with, and then you pick them off individually, or you put a lot of pressure on them, force them to clump up. You hit them with a big biotic, you hit them with a big EMP. So British Hurricane really controlling the pace of the set throughout every map here. We're seeing an example here on Rialto as well. Now 2 minutes, 43 seconds on the clock for British Hurricane to get just to the courtyard. Team Biscuits already showing their hand with Lynx and the Widowmaker, but I don't believe British Hurricane knows that Filion's on the Sombra just yet. So it's gonna be up to Filion to outpace Nesh on these EMPs. Filion gets slept though. They slept him, so they know where he is. Gets slept, and now he's gonna have to do some damage on the payload itself. Of course, the D.Va right there waiting for him. Half a cool, putting some pressure on the Sombra, forcing him to fall back. Less than half HP, gets bolstered right back up. Still about 30 seconds eaten away there from Team Biscuits, from British Hurricane, that is. Team Biscuits, though, they're being a little flexible, but they're still holding right at the payload. They're not getting up the high ground just yet. They're going to have Roten jump right down. Filion is ahead in EMP charge, but only slightly. And then Nesh clobbering Lynx as they go on the rooftop to try and grind Tony Hawk Pro Skater style. And now Fusion's going in, has the nano boost. Half a cool and Kid, though, stealing away these kills. Fusion's really just picked up the stragglers here, and more of an intimidation factor than anything else. Minute and 47 seconds left on the clock. There's very little contention remaining here for Team Biscuits. This is it. This is desperation hour here for Team Biscuits. British Hurricane making their way down to the last length of the map. Minute and 37 seconds on the clock. There's no one there for Team Biscuits. Total Lucio skates right in. Lynx gets one on Kib in the meantime. Now a contestation, but Lynx goes down. Funny Astro finds their Lucio counterpart, and they're going to emote just a little bit. The Sombra getting their last-ditch effort, but they're not going to survive for much longer. Self-destruct, EMP on the point, and that is it. British Hurricane take Rialto and take the set 4-0 over Team Biscuits, moving them to a 3-0 record here in EU Contenders Trials.
I think the scoreline definitely complements Hurricane, at least on some maps. At least it was still fairly close on Ilios. But I think you just saw the experience and know-how and knowledge of Hurricanes. They're in a meta that they enjoy. They have a lot of freedom to play all sorts of heroes. But I think Fusion's really showed me that he's grown up a lot since Season 2 at least. He said about sort of gaining that experience, improving a lot as a player. And it was really interesting to see it. The main tank play being able to survive a lot of different instances and compositions, I think really was a highlight and really complemented what British Hurricane were trying to do. It's not down and out for Team Biscuits just yet, though. They still have opportunities to get promoted to Contenders. And this maybe wasn't a game that they were putting too much hope into, but 4-0. Like, you need to make sure that you get some points on the board, as they can prove pretty pivotal if they want to go through, especially with those other teams that might be able to sort of nip a win from British Hurricane down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. You're certainly not out of it with a 1-2 record, but you start, being close to other teams in that middle of the pack area, and the map differential is certainly a big deal. There's a lot to break down from this set, 4 maps in total. So myself, Rapture, here with Ryan Central, we're going to throw it over to the desk one more time to break down that set. How about you all take it away?
Thank you, Rapture and Ryan. So we did get a British Hurricane 4-0 sweep against Team Biscuits. That's something neither of you guys expected, and I do want to kind of get in on that a little bit. There is a reason why, it wasn't just you guys. A lot of people in our research and in our story meeting said, hey, this could be, a trap game. This could, make British Hurricane slip up. And the word that kept coming up was tempo. And we keep bringing that up all through this desk. And we finally saw that slower tempo work on Hanamura, Nauri.
We absolutely did. And I just want to point out that I was right. So, no, they didn't win maps, which was really unfortunate. But there was a distinct improvement in how they were playing once they started to show us those flexes. We saw the Sombra, the Doomfist. We even saw a little bit of Wrecking Ball in there. We saw Valmaster come out on the Doomfist, which absolutely blew my mind. Like, I was actually disappointed when he went back onto Winston.
Yeah. That's all we were too.
So the moment they started swapping things up, there was a massive improvement. And you could see, first point Hanamura, they got a little bit rolled. They did the same thing to the enemy team. Fair enough. Then we move on to point B, and immediately they slowed it down. They hit the brakes and they made it that much more difficult for Hurricane to actually get onto the point. They stalled them out for like 2.5 minutes, something equally ridiculous. And it's just because they made Hurricane play their game. Eventually, Hurricane came back and they sped it up a bit, threw in a couple of ultimates, just absolutely caused havoc and mayhem. But that's it exactly. The moment they started slowing things down, coming through on Rialto with that double sniper, and it's that creepy, peaky, sneaky headshot, and it does it noticeably slows down the play style, and you could see the difference. So yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't enough to tip them over the edge, but I was correct.
But there, you mentioning that shows that there is some proper game tape for them to take and say, hey, this is where it worked. How do we replicate this a little bit more often? Because there were points in Hanamore and Rialto where Team Biscuits were really pushing British Hurricane. However, the way that British Hurricane responded was really about taking the tempo back and forcing a higher tempo type of play, Panda.
That's absolutely right. And when we got to see that flexibility to come out to Nauri's point as well, that's when Team Biscuits looked great, but that then forced to our original question, what happens when British Hurricanes are forced to play that game as well? Even when they came out on defense from Rialto, though they allowed Team Biscuits to get that third capture point, they still came out there on to the 3-3, the I guess less infamously known as the GOATs. Sure. They were able to speed up that tempo that you were just talking about, but they were able to aggress themselves all the way to the spawn doors as into Tea and Biscuits, and they weren't really ready for that. They weren't necessarily prepared for the veteranship of Fusions to come through and just cleave his way to an Urge Shatter behind all these hacks that were coming through of Nesh when the Sombra was available. But at a moment's notice, you saw just Genji Sombra, Doomfist Sombra, British Hurricanes. They were ready to take that slow, methodical pace that Team Biscuits wanted to play and absolutely flip the table on them. They just wanted to make this a very speedy game and control the pace themselves. May have been right on that sense as well, Nauri, but still got the prediction right.
Well, as you guys are going to get stuck with this face just for a little bit longer, the other thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that Tea and Biscuits, while they were playing that slower tempo, on Rialto, once British Hurricane were able to aggress upon them, it was almost like Tea and Biscuits were reacting from a different time zone. You know what I mean? It was very, very slow in terms of how they responded. And because of that, the reaction time just wasn't quite there. They almost got too comfortable. And I think that's exactly what the British Hurricane were looking for, right?
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, go ahead, Panda.
Well, I mean, I was just going to comment on again, like the moment, and we were even saying when we were watching the games, this is Nash's playground. This is where Sombra gets to have the most fun and where you got to see that tempo get kind of shoved down and make Team Biscuits play that very past tense kind of vibe with their play style is because Nash was just feeding so much information. It was almost like British Hurricanes were able to be in the future before the fights even happened. They could see everything kind of coming their way because of all the information that Nesh was free to give them. We never saw the quarter peekings coming out from a multitude of team members from Team Biscuits just to check to see where Nesh was.
Yeah, I mean, we even coming through onto second point. Sorry to just
no worries.
Further onto that point. So we moved on to second point Rialto, Team Biscuits on the offense there, and that was when British Hurricane swapped up onto their own 3-3, and that aggressiveness, as you say, took them absolutely by surprise, and it felt like they were playing a lot more passively. And I mean, obviously, I'll never know for 100% sure, but I feel like it comes back to that head game. They came through strong, powerful on Rialto. They pushed right through, and then suddenly Hurricane was in their face and pushed them so far back. And they were like, and it slowed them down, and they had to play to Hurricane's game. Yeah, so it just completely swapped it up there, took them off guard. What can you do?
Exactly. And so one thing I also want to talk about right now is who you think the player of the game was. For me, it was probably Nash. He seemed to be everywhere. He's going to be in the nightmares of a lot of Tea and Biscuits right now when they sleep tonight and look over some of that game tape, because he was clicking heads and taking names, Panda.
If I had to give it to anybody in particular, it would probably end up being Kib, going to the other DPS of British Hurricanes naturally. Sure, Nash was able to feed all the information, but it comes down to your counter DP, your co-DPS rather, in Kib to follow up on all of that space that's provided from the tanks of Fusions and Cool. And the one that showed up for me personally was Kib. His flexibility was shown through in a multitude of heroes today, whether it was his Doomfist, his Brigitte. We got to see a lot of fun Genji play coming out from him as well. And that's what truly this current patch of Overwatch is all about. Just who can take that compositional difference and really come up on those fights. So Kib gonna be the player of the game for me.
Nari, what about you? And also Cthulhu, I guess, as well.
Oh, Cthulhu has like made himself unknown. He's nowhere to be found. He realized that he
embarrassed about his
messed
pick,
up.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, he doesn't want to have to look Panda in the eye like ever again.
I don't blame him.
Okay, so I'm gonna sound like a stuck record here. Links. But most importantly, from Hanamura onwards, we said it. It was like he suddenly showed up. He turned on his monitor. There was one particular moment that really stood out where suddenly broadcast. We were spectating him, and he just got those 3 headshots, ding, 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 onto the Winston. I mean, he just, as much as his team wasn't able to capitalize on how he was playing, he showed up, man, and he was playing so well, and he didn't get those flashy plays that we're so used to, but he was still there, and he was still, he was a massive presence, and you could see that Hurricane had planned for that. Something that we spoke about on Iconvolt. They knew that Lynx was the guy to watch out for, and it was almost like Nesh was constantly on Lynx all the time. Like as soon as Rialto started, I was like, "Yay, Lynx is on Widow! Please watch out for Nesh." It's definitely going to be Lynx for me. As much as he got shut down continuously, he showed up and he was doing his best.
Well, I think for now, let's go ahead and go over some other, you can give your facial reactions. We're just going to go over some other results from trials today. So HSL reverse swept Shoes Money Crew EU to take the victory and get to 1 and 2. That is huge for the team. The next result is we have Org beat Copenhagen Flames 3-1, and Bazooka Puppies won their game 3-2 against Oshtek. So we actually had a ton of great games today and some upsets as well. So as of right now, after today, the standings, the only thing for sure is that British Hurricane are sitting pretty on the top, undefeated right now. Will they be able to maintain? Maybe, maybe not, but we will find out throughout this weekend. But for now, that is going to be it for us on Broadcast.gg. Unfortunately, my face is not on the screen to grace you once again for this goodbye, but I will be saying goodbye to you as well for Panda, Nauri, Rapture, and Ryan Central as well. Thank you guys for watching. And remember, Broadcast.gg is a community of casters, producers, anyone who wants to get involved in esports. If you want to come, we will support your way all the way through the beginning time, your first cast, all the way up to potentially contenders one day as well. But that is it for BGG, me, the desk, and the casters. We will see you guys tomorrow.